Good evening, Wakefield, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for Monday, March 9th, 2020. I call this meeting to order at 7:34. Our second item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. It is my distinct honor this evening to recognize a number of volunteers that have been appointed by this body to various committees, commissions, and boards. We just had a volunteer recognition event here in this building at the high school. It was called Celebrating Wakefield Volunteer Appreciation Night. And a number of those volunteers have joined us now in studio. I'd like to ask them all to rise and come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'd like to just take a moment to recognize our volunteers here this evening. As I mentioned a few moments ago, the Town Council has nearly 40 different committees, boards, and commissions. And we appoint approximately 180, 190 people to these positions each year. These are volunteer positions, and we are incredibly thankful for the commitment that each and every one of the volunteers makes to the various roles that they serve. They make Wakefield a better community. Their tireless dedication is just unmatched, and we are incredibly appreciative. So this evening we're going to dedicate to them and their service to our town. They are our town leaders. And with that, I should also point out over my right shoulder, we have a thank you to the volunteers. This was created by the Arts Department. I'd like to recognize Joyce Schilling, who is the department chair for the Wakefield Memorial High School Arts Department, who was involved with the planning of the event that we just came from, recognizing our volunteers. I'd also like to recognize Susan Lacey, who is the culinary director at the high school. The event included foods that were created, a menu created, and foods prepared entirely by our high school students. And I also want to recognize our incredible high school musicians from the music department, who also provided incredible acoustic entertainment as well. It was just a really, really well-done event, and we're incredibly indebted and thankful to everyone who attended. I think our attendance was nearly 100 people, and there were many other people who couldn't make it. And again, we can't do what we do without the volunteers, and we just send our thanks and our gratitude to each and every one of them. And with that, I would also remind everyone that if you have not yet applied to be on a committee, a board, or a commission and are interested in doing so, the window of time is still open. You have until this Wednesday, March 11th at 4:30 p.m. if you're interested in doing that. You can go to our town's website on the main page, wakefield.mass.us, and find all the information. It's simple and easy to apply, a very basic few question application and resume is all it takes. If you are looking for reappointment, please make sure that your term is not is up, and if it is, make sure you reapply. All that information, again, is on our website. You'll find your name under your committee, board, or commission, as well as when your term expires, but please be sure to do that. And again, we thank all of our volunteers very much. Item number 4 on the agenda is attendance. With that, I see that we have 6 counselors this evening, the absence of Councilor May, along with Madam Clerk, Town Administrator Mayo, and Town Council Mullen. Item number 5 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. This will be 2 votes we'll be entertaining this evening. The first is entertainment of a vote for the approval of the February 24th, 2020 executive session minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Donaco, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the executive session meeting minutes from February 24th, 2020. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Item 5B is the approval of the February 24th, 2020 regular Town Council meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Donaco, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the February 24th, 2020 regular Town Council meeting minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 6 on the agenda is public engagement. This is the opportunity for members of our community to come before the council to address any issues or concerns they may have. We ask that the the discussion be limited initially to 3 minutes with an extension within my discretion, and also the opportunity for counselors to offer any further comment. With that, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who has signed in for public engagement this evening?
No, Chairman, no.
All right. Very satisfied residents yet again. With that, item number 7 is the Scholarship Foundation of Wakefield. I'd like to welcome representatives of the Scholarship Foundation. This is a phenomenal organization, and they are here to talk about their 40th annual phone-a-thon, which will take place on Saturday, March 21st. So with that, good evening. If you could introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Michael Kilkelly. I'm the Vice President of the Scholarship Foundation of Wakefield. Our organization was formed in 1960, and over the past 60 years, we have provided over 11,000 financial awards to Wakefield students to assist them in obtaining a higher education. Last year, more than $680,000 was awarded to Wakefield full-time students of all ages, increasing the total we have awarded since 1960 to over $13.4 million. On Saturday, March 21st, we will hold our 40th annual phone-a-thon. As Vice President of TSF, I serve as the phone-a-thon chairperson. Last year, we raised over $42,000 from the phone-a-thon. We hope to increase that number this year. I would like to introduce Nora Scanlon, who's the president of the TSF Student Directors, who will talk a little bit more about the upcoming phone-a-thon.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkelly. I am Nora Scanlon, and I am the president of the student directors of the Scholarship Foundation at the high school. Before I begin, I would like to ask the other student directors who are with me tonight to introduce themselves. You guys want to stand up?
Hi, I'm Emma Johnson, and I'm in 10th grade.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Curran, and I'm also in 10th grade.
I'm Olivia Johnson, and I'm also in 10th grade.
I'm Kaylee Porter, and I'm also in 10th grade.
I'm Christina Joseph, and I'm in 12th.
Thank you. So 1 week from this Saturday, on March 21st, we expect to have between 50 and 100 high school students on hand for the 40th annual TSF Phone-a-thon. For the 10th consecutive year, we will be conducting our phone-a-thon at the Americal Civic Center. We plan to call as many Wakefield residents as we can between the hours of noon and 4 p.m. on that Saturday. And we hope that everyone will respond favorably to our most important fundraiser of the entire year. We hope to be able to surpass the $42,575 that we raised at last year's phone-a-thon. On behalf of the Scholarship Foundation of Wakefield, we would like the Town Council to endorse our 40th annual phone-a-thon, and we also ask that you please designate the week of March 15th through March 21st the Scholarship Foundation of Wakefield's Phone-a-thon Week in Wakefield. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, and congratulations on the continued success every year. That's a phenomenal number, $42,000 last year alone. It's a great program, indeed. Any questions or thoughts of the council? Councilor
I
Smith-Galvin.
have a question. It just occurs to me as people are getting rid of their landlines, are you replacing those numbers with cell phones?
Not very well. I think it's a challenge, but I think what we have replaced it with mostly is the having a mailing go out in the light department bill.
Okay.
And that mailing and the envelopes that are in there have sustained really a connection with the community. And we, I think, are able to hit a lot of people up that way.
Great. So if we don't get the call, look for that envelope for
Right.
sure. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Chines.
Thank you. And actually, I was wondering if you could share with us, if we don't get the call or if we miss the call next Saturday, how can residents support the Scholarship Foundation outside of the phone-a-thon?
Well, again, if they receive a mailing from the light department, they can look for that mailing in the envelope. They also can go to our website, tsfofwakefield.org, and we have the ability to donate right on our website. And the website also has the list of all of the different funds that are available to donate to, and many Wakefieldians have set up different funds to memorialize or to contribute in different ways that way. And so if you want to contribute to a particular fund, they're all listed there, and we're certainly happy to have any contributions that way as well.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, having lived in other communities and, been in communities that have scholarship foundations for local students, it amazes me the amount of money that both you raise from the community and also the amount that you're able to give out to students. It really is, I think, a crown jewel of sort of the philanthropy and community spirit here. So thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for all the students that dedicate their time to doing this,
Thank you.
here on the advisory board, but also in the phone-a-thon next weekend.
We should probably mention as well that now's the time to apply for a scholarship if you're going to be in college next year, living in Wakefield, attending full-time. The scholarship applications are also available on our website, and we're accepting those now as well.
Thank you for that. All right, so I know that there had been a request for the designation of March 15th through 21st as Wakefield Scholarship Foundation Week. Is there any objection by this body relative to that?
No objection.
Okay. So with that, as we don't have it as a vote anticipated, we instead will, we can offer a vote of encouragement to all of you as to comply with our meeting agenda. So with that, we wish you the best of luck. We hope you make an even bigger impact later this month, and we thank you for the time tonight to educate us all on what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for allowing us to come tonight and make this presentation.
And while you're here, we can also use we can also use this time to go on to our next item, which is item number 8A, and that was a request from the Scholarship Foundation for a banner to be placed on Main Street from June 15th through June 21st of 2020. This is in our packet of materials. Everyone has reviewed that already. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of that banner request.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Donaco, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the Scholarship Foundation of Wakefield, Inc. banner on Main Street from June 15th through June 21st, 2020. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you both for all that you do, and thank you everyone who came this evening as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
On the subject of banners, we can move on to item number 8B. Item number 8B is a request by the Megan Burnett Foundation for a Fly High banner on Main Street. And there's a bit of clarification here I'd like to make. They had originally requested that the banner fly from June 29th through July 13th of 2020, and that's what the packet reflects. Since that time, there has been a subsequent request by the Independence Day Committee to fly a banner during a portion of that time. I think Councilor Donaco, who spoke with both groups, and they are both comfortable with the idea of the Independence Day Committee flying, having their banner across Main Street through July 6th, whereas the Megan Burnett Foundation will have theirs from July 6th through July 13th. I should point out that the Independence Day Committee has not yet submitted its request to us formally, so we're not voting on this evening. They are encouraged to submit that as soon as possible because all banners are allowed on a first-come, first-served basis. But thank you, Mr. Donaco, in working that scheduling issue out for both organizations. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the Megan Burnett Foundation Fly High banner to be across Main Street from July 6th through July 13th of 2020.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Donaco, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, then, the motion before you is the Megan Burnett Foundation's request for a banner from July 6th through 13th. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 9 on the agenda is committees, boards, and commissions. And this is the opportunity for the various committees, boards, and commissions that we appoint as a body to present before the council what they've been up to, some of the activities they've been doing, giving us an update. And it's part of our ongoing efforts to keep better engaged with all the different entities that we appoint members to. So with that, I'd like to introduce representatives of Sweetser Lecture Series who are here this evening. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
If you could just identify yourselves.
My name is Julie Scott.
I'm Susan Kilkelly.
Thank you for coming.
Lots to talk about tonight. We are talking about our spring 2020 Sweetser Lecture Series. Flyers all set and ready to go. We've got Dan, I believe it's pronounced Chesney, a prolific travel author, lecturer, and journalist, talking about the White Mountain, a year in the life of Mount Washington. We've got Sanjeev Chopra coming on Tuesday, April 7th, best-selling author, professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, and a national and international lecturer. I've seen him a number of times. He's fabulous. And we've got Barbara Berenson, an author, retired senior attorney for the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, and she's a historian, and she will be talking about Massachusetts and the women's suffrage movement, the revolutionary reformers, because I believe this is the
100th
100th anniversary
of
of
women's
that
suffrage.
movement. So we've got a really exciting series. Did you want to say a couple things, and then I'll pitch in again?
Well, that's what I was going to say, was
Oh,
about this. No, so no, I don't have anything additional.
We've been working really hard with Town Hall, and I have spoken to a number of people on the committee. I'm supposed to thank Tom Mullen, who does an amazing amount of work for us, our legal and contractual advice person. Sarah Murphy really is indebted to you. She wanted to make sure I singled you out. Sherry Dalton, she so appreciates your help, your overall knowing absolutely everything that we need to do, and your organizational skills. And they are absolutely thrilled with the work that Jen McDonald has done for them this year, setting up the website. They have spoken so highly of her. And I'd like to thank everybody here and at home who are patrons and benefactors, and there are still tickets available at Smith's Drug and also the nights of the events. So we've got a very busy season ahead of us. We're looking forward to it. Super fun.
Do you have any question about the Sweetser Lectures?
I might have missed it, but the dates, could you tell me the dates again?
I
Julie?
actually did forget to mention the first date. We've got Wednesday, March 25th is the Mount Washington speaker. Tuesday, April 7th is Sanjeev Chopra, and Tuesday, April 14th is Barbara Berenson, and they all start at 7:30,
Great.
and they're all here at the high school in the lecture auditorium.
Excellent, thank you.
So we've had a very successful few years. We help out local charities. Last year, we helped out the Mystic Valley Elder Services, the Wakefield branch of the Salvation Army Holiday Kettle Fund, and the Wakefield Food Pantry. So it all goes right back into our needy citizens here. So it's a very enjoyable endeavor, very worthwhile, and super fun. We provide snacks and water as well. So thank you for your support over the years.
Thank you. Anyone else? And just to restate, if anyone wants more information, we have that available on the town's website as well as
Yes.
the library as well. I think it's
Correct.
the calendar of events, so there's a lot of different ways
Yep,
online to
and
find
we have a
it.
Facebook page as
And
well.
your Facebook page
Yeah.
as well, and I believe it's also in the newspaper. You'll
Yes,
see it.
and thanks so much to the Wakefield Daily Item. They are very supportive and have been so very supportive over the years.
It's really
And the Savings Bank. The Savings Bank is amazing.
Savings
We would
Bank
be
is our
nothing
major
without- Yeah,
sponsor.
huge sponsor. Savings Bank, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's an absolutely impressive series every year, and I feel like each year it gets more interesting and
It really
entertaining.
does.
So-
We've got
so-
3 really, really strong speakers this year. It'll be tremendous, so hope everybody can make it.
And on the subject of the library, I did also just want to give a plug as well to Friends of BB. And the Friends of the BB yesterday had an open house, and it was very well attended. And it's really a team effort, all the different aspects of the library coming together. And on your screen now, you should see the website, friendsofbb.org. You can go there if you want to become involved. They have a lot of opportunities for volunteers and a lot of different ways that you can really make an impact. It's a great organization that supports the library's efforts, much like your series does as well. And so it really, you've got a solid team.
And it's a great way to reach out and help your community and meet new people. And we have so many new people in town. There's so many great committees that people can meet people like themselves and unlike themselves, and it really unites the community. It's very important.
The library is one of the gems of Wakefield indeed, and so we're
Sure
we're
is.
glad to be able to promote it.
So changing my hat to my secretary of the Friends of the Library, I appreciate that very much. That's my other main volunteer activity.
And they had very good snacks yesterday as well.
Phenomenal snacks indeed, yes. Well, thank you both again very much, and we hope that the series is well attended this year.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for your support.
Item number 9B on the agenda is the Albion Cultural Exchange Committee. They have asked to present an update at our next meeting. We've also been invited to the building to take a look at some of the construction that's been going on there, some really exciting stuff. And so we're looking forward to hosting them at our next meeting, but did just want to let everyone know that stay tuned, because that will be coming up. Item number 10 is our community health prevention update. Some of you may have heard of something called COVID-19. It's been a lot in the news. And so I wanted to invite up our team, our town's team. COVID-19 is obviously a very serious health concern that we have across the country, across the world. And when you're watching a lot of what you're hearing on the news, it often talks about the local and state partnerships that are developed and exist. And those are so incredibly critical in terms of addressing the issues that this COVID-19 brings with it. So with that, I've invited this evening our Director of Health and our Director of Emergency Management to talk about COVID-19, answer any questions. And it seems like the most important thing is to make sure that we have good information flow, lots of facts, and clear understanding for folks. So it's we don't want to get into hysteria here, but we want to make sure that people are concerned to the level they should be. And certainly this is something that we want to make sure we are sufficiently educated on. So with that, good evening, welcome. If you could introduce yourselves.
Ruth Clay, Health Director.
Tom Walsh, Emergency Management Director.
So Tom and I are working very closely along with the school department and Steve on working as a team dealing with COVID-19. So I think the question that we're asked most often is Wakefield as a community prepared? Yes, would be the short answer. In the health department, we've been planning for this basically since H1N1. So this wasn't a maybe for us, this was basically inevitable. And so inevitable has happened. We're pretty comfortable with the plan. And now it's making sure everybody else knows the plan and is also comfortable with what we've been doing. We did hold a rather large meeting last Tuesday with hopefully, I think, all the stakeholders that we could think of, including the business community, school, VOC, both schools, department heads. We went through a little bit of basics on facts and COOP plan. Oh, I'm sorry. And we also had the medical director for Hallmark Health there also, which was very helpful and explained the preparations that the hospital is doing and basically made him part of our team and I'm part of his team. So we all have each other's cell phone numbers and so we're all working together. There may be things that the community could help with them, and certainly they'll be a key partner for us. The COOP plan is a continuity of operations plan, which is something the emergency management department and director has. I'm going to let Tom talk about it. It's a general plan so that operations can continue in an emergency. It's a little different depending on what kind of emergency this is. This being an emerging infectious disease, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to let Tom talk about that.
The plan is basically that our COOP plan is a continuity operations plan for the town. So we want to keep the town running. If we prepare for the worst, hope for the best type of thing. So if the worst thing happened here, we want to make sure the town is still going to be able to respond to emergency calls, still conduct some business that's essential for us to keep thriving, to keep going. So what we do is we have a clear delineation of people's tasks, what they're going to do, who is going to be in charge, who is going to replace them, because what happens is on some of these things that when they estimate 30 or 40% of your population may become ill, well, that same amount of people is going to affect your workforce. So we try to keep our employees safe as well. So if we had to, say, shut down the town, but kept the town hall open so people could work, how IT can get people to work from home. So those are part of the coup plan that we are working on now. But basically is to make sure that if, say, the director of a certain department is sick, even the second, then the third person will take over. And with that, we want that clear delineation of who's going to be in charge, that the people know this ahead of time. So when something does happen and all these plans are in effect, if we say, gee, 3 people are out today, well, we know who's going to take their place and what jobs are going to be completed, what tasks are going to be performed. It's going to be essential work. We're not going to have people come in and just do a mundane type of thing because we don't want them there. We'd rather they were home, maybe isolated or whatever. And we want to make it so that enough people can work from home, so we're still getting some workforce in there. You know, plus, you know, things that have to get done. Besides, you know, police and fire are going to respond to their emergencies. We still have to pay people, you know, and then certain things have to get DPW, like we have a main water break or something like that. So we'll need partial, you know, not everybody probably from the DPW working, but the people who need it on the emergency type of thing will. And all of our DPW workers are also first responders as well. They're all trained in the ICS system. So that's part of our overall plan. So every department will have what their operation will be. And some will be essential and some won't be. The non-essential won't have to show up, and but that's a meeting that happens through the town administrator and our emergency management team, which usually consists of the town administrator, police chief, fire chief, myself, Ruth, IT, we bring in EMS and DPW.
Communications.
And communications manager. So those 9 entities are usually, they're the ones who sit and make the decisions, and we go through it, so it works that way. Does anybody have any questions on that at all?
I guess perhaps if you could just speak to one point, which is the code red system that we have and being able to kind of push out information to the public.
Yes.
When and if
Part
appropriate.
of our plan also stipulates that we will notify our people on the emergency stuff. So if we get something from CDC where we have to put it out there, people will be notified by code red. And Jen McDonald, our communications director, has already put out the stuff through our web, telling people to sign up if they aren't in it, and that's how we're going to communicate to the public through the code red system on emergency type of things, where if we're going to open up emergency dispensing site, if we need you, if the schools are going to close, and you know, children stay home, or you know, if we come from CDC, it said maybe the seniors, maybe they should be staying in place now. Those type of messages will go out strictly through code red. We'll use that. That's our emergency notification system. And it should hit almost every household. And hopefully we get the rest of them that aren't signed up in the fold.
And I think Director Clay as well, it's important to underscore the line of communication the open line of communication you have with the CDC, and you are constantly keeping apprised of the latest information and developments for our community. So although we think about it as something at the federal level, it comes down quite locally, and every municipality is involved in some way.
So I'm on a conference call with the CDC every Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and DPH is now starting weekly conference calls. Those have been kind of sporadic, but starting this week, we'll also have weekly conference calls. At this point, the State Health Department is following CDC guidelines. That may not always be the case, but for now, they are, and we are. Decisions, though, will end up being made on a local level. So they'll be made as a team for the most part. I'm the incident commander for this particular incident. But I get multiple emails, same email from 6 different people, times 2 for Melrose and Wakefield. So I get a lot of information every day, and we keep apprised of it every day. So there's 3 things. I'm not going to get into the basic facts about COVID-D. The facts change constantly, and that's a really important point. So whatever I say tonight might change tomorrow or the next day. So we really urge people also to be checking the CDC's website. Super important, there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot. I know this sounds trite, but you can't believe everything you read on the web. So there's only two places to believe what you read, and that's the CDC website, which is cdc.gov, and the state's website, mass.gov, and just put in coronavirus. Those are the only, well, and our website, of course, but those are the only two places. It's so important that misinformation not get repeated and become some people's reality. The second thing is being mindful of stigma. We're a diverse community, we're a diverse state. There has been some issues with stigma. It is not related to any particular person or group of people or type of people. And so I think it's very important that we keep that in mind and treat everybody the same. Being prepared, this is something we ask people to do every year for flu and for winter storms. So this is a really good time to remind people about being prepared. Preparation, in this case, we mean actually having 2 to 4 weeks of food at home, non-perishable food, medications, pet food, cleaning supplies, if you can find them at this point. You know what, I can't predict, nobody can predict what's going to happen. The very worst scenario is we all stay home for 2 weeks, in which case you need to have those supplies, because you're not going to want to be out and about, and there won't be a lot of things open for you to go to. So can you protect yourself? Again, this is not being trite, and it's the same thing we tell people for the flu, but obviously stay away from people who are sick. More importantly, if you're sick, stay home. You are not being a hero by coming to work not feeling well. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. Using cough and sneeze etiquette was something we've really been working on for several years for the influenza. It's the same thing for coronavirus, coughing or sneezing into your elbow or into a Kleenex and throwing that away. Coronavirus is spread through droplets primarily, and that's sneezing and coughing. That's what we mean by droplets. Washing your hands with soap and water, 20 seconds, warm water, sing happy birthday twice. That is more important than using the hand sanitizer, okay? Washing your hands, washing your hands. Then if you want, you can use hand sanitizer. And using hand sanitizer only if soap and water is not available. The school department is, oops, I already said that part, but food and pet food, don't forget your pet. Oops, and I forgot to mention a thermometer. We have talked to our local pharmacies in Wakefield last week, told them that tonight I would be mentioning thermometers so that they could be stocked. So they said Monday they would be okay, so hopefully, I didn't check today. They have more thermometers in stock, pain relief, cough relief. And people can always call us at the health department at our phone number, 781-246-6375, or Board of Health at wakefield.ma.us, or me personally, rclay, R-C-L-A-Y, at wakefield.ma.us. Even though I'm back and forth between Melrose and Wakefield, I answer emails all day and all night. So anybody is welcome to contact me. Every day seems to be a different issue for people, and right now social gatherings mass gatherings seem to be the issue that people are concerned about right now. I know you've seen things in the news of some schools that have closed for a day or two or a week. Some gatherings have been canceled, some large gatherings have been canceled. It is not my recommendation at this time that large gatherings in Wakefield be canceled. That could change tomorrow, as I said, the information keeps changing. But again, we really don't want to feed into the hysteria. We'd like everybody to just kind of stay calm, live your life the way you normally would, just be extra careful. If and when we think that it's time to do social distancing and not have large gatherings, we will do that in conjunction with the school department, because of course they have a large venue. We'll be consistent with the library and any other large venues that we have in town. But today is not that day.
Thank you. I'll turn over to Vice Chair Santos, who's also an alum of the Board of Health.
An alum of the Board of Health when H1N1 hit. And
That's
I
true.
can picture standing, it all comes back to hockey, outside of a hockey rink.
Of course.
When we first got the news in talking to Ruth on a Saturday. And I had such tremendous confidence with you back then, Ruth, in your planning and knowing if things got a little bit wacky, that we were okay, that Wakefield was okay. And I have no doubt that it's the same way. And Tom, you talking about as well, you know, having you added just makes it that much more secure. But I think Wakefield citizens should be very comfortable with the approach you take, which is calm and reasoned and based on facts and intelligent, with always the best interests of our citizens, our health. So I am very happy to listen to whatever you have to say and follow your guides, both of you. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. You did bring up a good point with emergency dispensing sites.
Yeah.
So there's basically two ways we would deal with an emerging pathogen, an emerging contagious disease. If there was a vaccine or medication, we would open up our emergency dispensing sites. Very comfortable with doing that. We've exercised that. We've had tabletops, we've had functionals. We're ready if that happens. We're not anywhere near that happening, which is why mostly we've been talking about the social distancing part. So.
Thank you.
Councilor Butt.
So just a couple of points. Director Clay, thank you for talking about Dr. Sardella coming in and meeting. I'm gonna, as a trustee at Melrose Wakefield, I just wanted to correct you. It's Melrose Wakefield now, not Hallmark Health. We rebranded 2 years ago, so just.
Old habits die hard.
I know, no, but they are a great partner, and I'm glad that he came in. He actually gave that presentation to trustees last month, so that's really great that we are working with them since they are part of our town. I just wanted to ask if this, before coming here, I went to a Dunkin' Donuts in our town, and I have been really good, thanks to Councilor Smith-Galvin's encouragement of bringing a reusable container
Yeah.
for my coffee, and they had posted a sign, and they said it just went up today that says, valued guest. I took a picture. We take our job of keeping you running very seriously, so to be extra safe, Dunkin's is temporarily stopping the refilling of travel reusable mugs. We apologize for any inconvenience. And they said that the local Board of Health had asked them to do that. Is that not true? Or Board of Health, they said.
I don't like to
No. Okay.
disagree with them, but no, we didn't.
Starbucks did it as well.
Okay.
I
so
know a lot
Do you
of
think it's
them.
coming from the state? No. So
No.
they're just doing it. Okay.
No, and that's fine for them to do that.
Yeah.
But it didn't come from the state health department or the local health department, but they're perfectly, that's fine for them to do that.
Being
You can
safe,
blame for a
being
lot of
cautious.
things.
Yep. No.
Sounds like it's more like come from corporate
Corporate.
D&D.
Yeah. I was ready, and they said no.
Does it
thank
say on the
you.
sign that the local board of health?
No, that's what they
Okay.
said to me.
Good, okay, just.
Yeah, the sign does
That
not
I
say
would
that.
get corrected if it was on the sign.
Yeah.
But no.
Councilor Chines.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation, and I think more importantly, the preparation that's gone into this. I know there's been a lot of time spent from the two of you, but also a lot of folks in town. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about sort of prevention and kind of preparations for prevention. So it sounds like the school department was at the meeting last week, and certainly anytime you're talking about infectious diseases, I know that, having 4 small children, I know that that's a big piece of it. But I'm wondering if you could talk specifically about any special precautions we're taking with the senior population in town. Either in terms of, additional cleaning at the senior center, work with the housing authority for Harts Hill and other senior housing. Are there any special things we should be doing or are doing, given some of the vulnerabilities of the senior population?
So for the school department, I talk to the superintendent every day, sometimes more than once a day, as well as the superintendent at the VOC, where we did have one issue that, we dealt with. And the Council on Aging Director and the Housing Authority Director were at our meeting last week.
Great.
So we're working closely with them. They're doing extra cleanings. And at this time, they're going to continue their programming. People who have underlying health conditions or immunocompromised are probably more self-isolating than others. But at this time, we're going to try to keep things going as long as possible.
Okay. And, if, hopefully this won't happen, but if we do get to a point where we're seeing, self-isolation among, again, particularly, folks in housing, folks in, seniors, have we talked about, and this may be a larger question beyond the two of you, but, have we talked about sort of any services that we need to think about externalizing for vulnerable populations in town?
Well, I do have a meeting on Thursday with Mystic Valley Elder Services.
Okay.
And I was going to invite our Council on Aging Director. It's going to be a joint Melrose and Wakefield meeting. There's only so many meetings I need to repeat over and over again. But, Mystic Valley covers both of us. So we'll be talking to them about what services they're offering and what other services we may want to offer or need to offer. The Meals on Wheels clients already have 2 weeks of frozen meals.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of their regular program already.
Yeah.
But there are other things that, we may want to do, and not just for that population, but Harts Hill or other elderly populations. Luckily, most services are delivered nowadays. Prescriptions can get delivered and food can get delivered.
Great.
But we'll see. Yep, I'll tell you after Thursday.
Thank you. And then just maybe one sort of thought for us as a council. Again, hopefully it won't come to this, but we did talk a few meetings ago about remote participation, and I'm wondering if that's maybe a discussion we need to accelerate in light of, the potential of COVID-19 and other things, if that's something where we should think about sooner rather than later, trying to put a policy in place so that, if we do find ourselves in a situation where we should be limiting face-to-face meetings, we've got the opportunity to keep, town government up and running.
Anyone else? Well, I think the most important takeaways here are that the town is coordinated and engaged, and we have an incredible team that we've assembled that is regularly monitoring and meeting. I believe you have another meeting coming up this week.
We have actually tomorrow. We have a
Tomorrow.
department head meeting.
Yes.
So that it'll be all laid out for every department head will know, will give information and get information on what's going on. Just wonder, on one of the remarks to you was that part of the meeting that we had last Tuesday was to clean all the town buildings better. Town hall, they've been doing extra work on the thing and making sure things are up. And I think that's happened to every facility. I haven't checked all of them, but I can tell you that it's already, you can see the difference. Not that it was not sanitized, but they're doing double duty there. So people are very diligent in what they're trying to get across.
It's the little things, hitting every door handle, the
Yeah.
Lysol and the counters and things like that. I think you'll notice we all have Lysol wipes on our desks and what have you, so.
And I just ordered more disinfectant tonight. Should be here in a week.
Well, it's certainly something I think, Mr. Mayo, for, all the staff that's doing that work. I mean, that is a lot of extra work that is I think underappreciated. And so certainly I want to make sure on behalf of the council that, we do recognize all of the additional effort that's going into that.
And we'll continue to push out the information and updates as warranted, certainly. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for folks watching tonight, that we're on it. We'll continue to keep people informed. And if circumstances change, as you've indicated, Director Clay, it is entirely possible. We'll be sure that we provide.
I can pretty much
people with-
guarantee
Right.
it will change.
Indeed. And so we'll provide real-time updates for folks so that they know. So with that,
Absolutely.
Director Clay, Director Walsh, thank you both for all of your work. I know that you will continue to be on it, and thank you for your updates tonight.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 11 on the agenda is the presentation of fiscal year 2021 budgets. We have three budgets this evening. The first is budget number 39, which is the general insurance budget. I'll remind those watching that we are continuing to coordinate with the Finance Committee during this budgeting process. We've endeavored to have a more collaborative process this year. So as a part of that, we will have some input from the Finance Committee subcommittees that are assigned and affiliated with the various budgets we're looking at, I believe with the exception of the insurance. So with that, I'll turn it over to our town accountant, Mr. Gill. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, town council members. Tonight, the first budget will be the general insurance budget. We have John Spinello here tonight. John's our insurance agent. He has been for many years. John helps us with our general insurance budget. In the next budget also, the workers' comp budget. So I'll go over the numbers, and then I'll let John jump in, or if there's questions, I'm sure John will have an answer. The general insurance budget, we're recommending that this budget be increased $36,767. This increase breaks down $34,200 in the tax levy portion. I do want to point out that there is new coverage, $7,500 for cybersecurity within that $34,200. There's an increase to the water division of $1,940, and there's an increase to the sewer division of $627. This budget covers the town's buildings, motor vehicles, professional liabilities, and cybersecurity. The total budget request for fiscal '21 is $437,225. The tax levy portion is $401,525. There's $22,700 coming from the water enterprise and $13,000 from the sewer enterprise. With that, I'll turn it over to John if he has any comments or if there are any questions with regards to this budget.
I really don't, I mean, I sent everything out. I didn't know if there's any questions. You know, we're adding data compromise and cyber liability to the program. Started that last fall. We couldn't add it mid-year, so it was something we talked about with the IT department. We actually could have bought it a few years ago, but it was really just too expensive, and we couldn't get the limits we wanted. So it was time to buy it, you know, based on really the environment that we live in today. So it was something we discussed in the fall, and we put in the budget, and we'll see where it goes. And we talked to them about the pricing in May. So.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? Councilor Chines.
Just a couple of questions. First, can you talk a little bit about the cyber insurance and specifically what that is that sort of covering the, covering sort of bringing systems online in the event of a cyber attack? Is it like liability for ransomware? I guess talk a little bit more about the policy itself.
There's two parts to this coverage. There's a data compromise portion and then the cyber liability. So if our system was hacked, or probably shouldn't use this word, but we had a virus or malware or something like that came in that disabled us from operating. You know, it came in and stopped us from paying bills, paying payroll. They would come in and they would restore it to where it was before that. And that also, any data that was lost, they'll rebuild that. So they have a team that would come in and kind of walk us through it with our IT department to get us up and running again. So whether it's hacked by someone we know, or just a third party that came in and kind of disrupted our daily operation.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of basically the costs of just getting us back online if the systems were compromised.
Exactly. And then on the data, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and then the liability piece.
So the data compromise is just that someone came in and stole some information on an employee, or employee accidentally put it out, Facebook or out into social media, and the person was personally injured for it. And really, the big thing there is we have a public relations coverage within there, but it's more on the defense liability. So you would probably have a claim come out of that for some sort of injury, so you'd have defense claims there. And they have a team that specializes in defense of this, so they would do it unless town council would like to. I doubt it, but so that's really the big portion of that. When obviously someone has been injured, when the name is out there, a claim is going to follow. So that's why the coverage, I think, at this point was warranted.
Great, thank you. And just the second question I had, this is actually a question on fiscal '20. It looks like we're over budget. Do we? Is there a reason for why we're over for '20?
Well, on the workers' compensation budget, right, I can go in and look at the rates and look at our experience mod, and I can get it right down to $1. You know, this budget comes up for renewal in July.
Okay.
So sitting here, it's kind of a guess, right? I mean, I really don't know. But what happened last year we were over is we added 6 vehicles to our schedule, went from 170 to 176. Doesn't sound like much, but 6 vehicles is $600, that's $3,600 that was added to it. That kind of caught me by surprise. And so when we talked to them in May, they will send out the renewal premiums. I usually sit down with Steve and Kevin and we go through them. And we have a really good program and we have a good relationship with the carrier. They like us, we like them. We have a low loss ratio. So it's easy to negotiate with them to try to see if we can fit it in our budget. And the other issue is that a few years ago, they offered us a 2-year contract. We didn't have to stay with them if we didn't want to, but they gave us a cap of 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Steve signed that in a minute. So we had a 2.5% cap for 2 years. And all indications are sitting here today, because that contract has expired, looking at the nation and public entities, it's about they're talking about a 4 to 4.25% increase. I don't think we're going to see that because we have a good relationship with it, but at this time, it's really difficult to pinpoint what's going to happen in July. So that sometimes it does go over. So
Okay, thank you, appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.
Any other questions? So just confirming the cyber liability that we now have, how does that compare to some other municipalities? Are we pretty much in line with where we should be relative to that coverage?
Well, right now we don't have any. So
right. Well, but I'm saying
yeah.
what you're proposing. How does that align with other communities that do?
Well, I don't know what they do. I only talk to the underwriter who writes a lot of municipalities, and they're number one underwriter in the country when it comes to municipalities. So they have a nice program. So they offered it to us at a very, I thought it was expensive and a very low limit, kind of like a teaser type thing. We didn't buy it, and so when I talked to them in the fall, this is their boilerplate that they use throughout the entire country. So I assume that, you know, it's where it should be. Does that answer your question? I don't know. But
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like something that we can reevaluate for next budgeting cycle as well. Then.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like something we can reevaluate next budgeting cycle just to make sure our coverage is
Correct.
adequate.
Always.
Basically, right?
Yes.
Good. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the general insurance budget in the amount of $437,225 with the tax levies as detailed by Town Accountant Gill.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Chine, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the general insurance budget for fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $437,225. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Tanaka? A vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that. Our next budget is the workers' compensation budget.
Yes, the workers' compensation budget for fiscal '21, we are recommending a decrease to this budget, a total decrease of $11,369. This decrease breaks down under the tax levy portion. The decrease is $2,914. There's a small increase in the water division of $550. There's a decrease in the sewer division of $1,055. And there was a decrease for the municipal light department of $7,950. The total budget request is $537,619. with $477,873 coming from tax levy, $13,780 coming from the water enterprise, $7,936 from the sewer enterprise, and $38,030 coming from the municipal light department.
Thank you, Mr. Gill.
Come on, John, you're gonna love to talk about this.
How long do you have? Well, as you can see, we increased the payroll by a little over 8% off of the 18 to 19 audit. And I've been increasing payroll by 3.5% annually. Well, that hasn't been enough. We've been averaging 4.3% payroll increase. And I'm not sure when this happened, but we brought on more payroll when we started the early child program in Doyle. I don't know how much that was, but probably it was $1 million in payroll, so that's in here. So our payroll keeps going up. Our experience mod and our experience keeps going down, which is what we want. So we were able to, I was able to put in here expanding the budget by about 8 to 8.5% on payroll, and we still had a decrease in the budget. Yeah, I can't say enough about this, but, I checked the loss runs the other day, and as of last Friday, we had $44,000 in paid losses. I can tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen it this low, this late. I was concerned in November and December because in workers' comp, you have slip and falls, strains, sprains. Well, this winter's been fantastic, right? So to have 12 paid claims and only $44,000 when we average over $200,000, really, if we can get through another 103 days, not that I was counting, but if we could, that experience mod is going to fall again, and drastically on the good side. But I've never seen it like this, and whether it's just luck, whether, I don't care how we get there, but, to us, it's just really, really good to see the last few years, our experience trending in the direction that we really want to, because this budget is influenced really by three things. Rate increases or decreases. We actually had a decrease this year, but really we didn't benefit from the rate decrease very much. 14 classes went down, 3 went up, but they went up drastically. So we really didn't see much of a benefit there. So it's rate increases or decreases, payrolls, and our experience. And our payrolls are expanding, but it's just great that, our experience is trending in the right direction, because our mod was, if you looked in the mods I sent out, it was 120 and 113 for the losses. So it's small losses, large losses. Now all of a sudden it's 111, 107, and we're having a really good year, and we're kicking out a bad year. I never predict, but I'm looking forward to July 1st, what the loss runs are, and then next year what the experience mod is. So I think it's all good right now. So
Great.
Was that short enough, Steve?
That was great.
Any questions of the council? Councilor Chines?
Just an observation, in kind of looking at, budgets for the police department, the fire department, and the DPW over the last couple of years. One of the things we've talked about are some of the investments that the departments have all made in training and safety equipment and things like that. And I'd like to think that maybe that's helped with some of the experience. And I think, to me, that's a good indication that, doing the right thing is not only the right thing for your employees and making sure that you can keep folks, on the street and on the job, but obviously this is a good example of how it potentially saves you money over the long run, too.
Right. Yeah, police and fire are not included in workers' comp because they're under a different code of 111F. But from an underwriting standpoint, municipalities are really difficult. You can't really get many carriers to write it. It's a specialized program. Yeah. You really can't get your arms around a municipality. We got 17 different classifications here. We sub out very little work here. We got a light department, water, sewer, park. I mean, we do it all here. And you got 600 employees going all the time. So I always believe in the law of large numbers for insurance, but when it comes to workers' comp for municipality, it doesn't always work for us, because in the year we're in right now, we have about $275,000 in losses. One claim is $100,000. So all you need is one bad one, and it throws everything off. So it doesn't always work for us, but right now it is, and I'm happy about it. So, yeah.
But there is training in the other departments, so that has helped out in there too.
Well, I don't think we really have many questions to ask what you're doing. Just keep doing it. That's what it comes down to.
I didn't do it.
Definitely. All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the workers' compensation budget for fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $537,619 with the tax levy, water, sewer, and gas and light, as indicated by Town Accountant Gill.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Smith Galvin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the workers' compensation fiscal year 2021 budget in the amount of $537,619. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote is 6-0. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Have a good
Spinello.
evening.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Move on to item number 11C. This is the Department of Public Works budget for fiscal year 2021. And this evening, we welcome representatives of that department, as well as the Finance Committee member as well.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The DPW budget, I'll quickly go over the numbers, turn it over to Joe Conway, the DPW director, Ian Waite, the business manager for the DPW, and Jim Sullivan, the Finance Committee subcommittee to the DPW. This budget for fiscal 2021, we're requesting a $239,667 increase over the current fiscal year. This increase breaks down under personal services. The increase is $159,128, which is contractual and negotiated increases. The increase in purchase of services is $69,413. There's an increase in materials and supplies of $11,326, and a small decrease to other charges, which are dues and memberships, of $200. The total budget request for fiscal '21 is $6,349,868, with $6,265,465 coming from tax levy, $84,403 coming from available funds, which are $44,800 from the Perpetual Care Fund, $3 from the Park Trust Funds, and $39,600 from sale of cemetery lots. The snow and ice budget is level funded at $850,000. The SOAR enterprise budget has increased $322,518 to $8,956,011. And the water enterprise has increased $454,697 to $6,061,942. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Quickly to the council, this is the first time I've actually had the pleasure of having Ann Waite, our business manager, with us. So I'd like to formally introduce her to you all. Ann comes to us from the city of Melrose, where she was serving as the #2 in command in Public Works. I myself and my team feel very fortunate to have her on our staff and that she was able to join us. I can assure you that very quickly in the interview process with Ann, it was overwhelmingly apparent that not only did she talk the talk, but she's walked the walk. So it's been a breath of fresh air with her, and I can't say more than enough fantastic things. And I'm looking forward to what the future is. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Welcome.
So I'll touch a little bit on some of the things that Kevin ran down really quick and give you a brief overview of our budget so far. Well, our budget for fiscal '21, excuse me. This year was an interesting year. We saw probably the biggest transformation, shape-shifting, I guess you could say, in Public Works since probably the 90s. With the retirement of Rick Stinson, the Collins study, labor classification, and some other things, you really saw, from the ground floor up, a transformative realignment in things. We've seen our administrative structure change a little bit. So previously, before that, the person who was performing Ann's position was responsible for both running the business side of Public Works and also responsible for everything that happened outside of the walls of Town Hall. So all the operational things on the street. Through the support of Town Administrator Mayo, we have decided to break that out to appropriately give attention and the required need to things as appropriate. What we would find was happening is in the middle of a a bill run or, a heavy customer service period. It's spring, people who are coming outside and things like that. It was tough to be running the front end of the office and getting your bids and budget documents prepared and also be accountable for everything else that was going on the road. So ultimately, there were days where a decision would have to be made, where something would have to get either deferred or tabled until a later appropriate time. In addition to that, on the personal services side, you see the addition of an FTE for engineering. For whatever reason, historically, engineering was the only group that did not have any administrative support. So you found that all customer service interaction, filing, background business functions were performed by the engineers and or the GIS project manager. And what we found that was happening with that is that was something that was taking them away from their high-level technical tasks, and much like some of the other things you'll see in this budget, it was deferring other tasks until a later date and time, and then you would have to consciously take yourself away from your technical, projects and design to update asset records, asset management, perform filing, payroll, different things like that. Probably the most impactful change to this budget was the Collins study with the labor union. This is something that was entered into between the town and the labor union that provided a needed update to the job descriptions from entry-level laborer all the way up to the highest classification, which is your tradespeople in the laborers union. This is something that probably hadn't been done since the early 90s, if not earlier. And one of the things it corrected was it took a lot of outdated things and modernized them. It also made the employee accountable to a higher level of classification and qualification. We found that it's increased professionalism and accountability in the staff, and it really seems that staff in the labor group is motivated to achieve more and bring more to the table in their day-to-day. Part of this was a salary analysis with peer communities and a survey of the market, and inside of this this classification study that was included. The overall increase, as Kevin had mentioned, in personal services was $159,128. For purchase and services, with the level of impact that the labor's classification study on it, there was a little bit of a dial back in purchase of services. This is not a year of change, but a transformative year. I think it's going to be a lot of self-reflection and kind of charting our course for the future. Upon Rick Stinson's retirement, he left us in an excellent place to succeed, and I think we just need time to see through our goals and develop some other strategies to get us where we all want to be. So with that being said, we tried to keep purchase of services as minimal as possible. In the engineering division, we saw an increase in $25,000 for the stormwater program. This is all generated through the unfunded mandate in the stormwater permit. There's some additional testing that we have to do for this phase of the permit, which is requiring this increase. We've also seen a little bit of a restructuring in how AutoCAD licensing is structured. So there's $5,000 in the budget to increase for that so we can continue our licenses. In fleet maintenance, we're also seeing the same thing with computer licensing. There seems to be a trend in our industry where licensing is starting to get expensive and slowly ticking up over time. That was an increase to the fleet maintenance side of $1,500. The other thing you'll see in here, which is pretty proactive on the part of Public Works, is a $10,000 increase in equipment maintenance. What we're finding that our capital acquisitions, particularly for frontline snow fighting equipment, are getting very expensive. And one of the things that we did not have was a preventative maintenance program to start addressing some of the rust and different things on the vehicles. As you know, I'm sure it's been stated in front of this group a few times by now, our paint shop has been closed, so we don't have the ability to do any work in it. It also vents directly into the Galvin Middle School. So that has just become dead storage. What this $10,000 will allow us to do is take some of these vehicles that are out in the salt and the snow primarily through their whole life, reduce some of that rust, and repaint so that hopefully we can achieve the 20 years that we should be getting out of these vehicles. At this rate, we should be able to do a vehicle a year preventatively, starting obviously with the most need and then working through that. In our buildings division, we see an increase in telephone of $10,000. This is mostly driven through increases with copper cabling and a couple of changes to some wireless access points. Electricity, so if it's not broken, I'm not a fan of trying to fix it. Previous to this, for the past probably 2 decades, we've run a 5-year average of kilowatt hours, and we've worked with the light department to see where they think that their rates are going to be. That's the same thing here. There's a small increase based on consumption usage being up a little bit in some of our buildings, and a very small increase in where we were giving guidance on where the rates were going to be for this year. Last but not least, in purchase of services for forestry and parks crane rental, what we're finding now is that some of the more expensive tree work that we have to do is requiring us to use cranes to safely lift dead, dying, safety issue trees out into somewhere where we can address it. This is a budget item that we always overspend, so what this $5,000 is to do is to bring us a little bit closer to where we've been spending the last couple of years. Materials and supplies for this budget, you see an increase of $11,326. This is solely fuel increases, so slight increase in the 5-year average for consumption, and then we use a commodities report to estimate whether the rates might be going for fuel, and the increase reflects that as so. Snow and ice, as Kevin had said, is level funded at $850,000. With the exception of this year, I caution you that the average year still costs $1.344 million. If we were to have more winters like this one, you probably would see me overwhelmingly happy. Outside of the tax levy in the water and sewer enterprise budgets, I'll start with sewer first. So the MWRA sewer assessment represents 76.50% of the budget. That assessment is estimated to increase at $207,303. The sewer budget increase with the sewer assessment from the MWRA is 3.7357, and the budget increase without the MWRA is 1.3345%. Some of the things that added to this, much like the tax levy side, is contractual step increases and the labor classification study impact on the laborers in this group. There's some overtime adjustments related to the rate changes. There's some administrative expenses and insurance expenses that have increased up to $15,733. Sewer purchase of services, this is only going up for electricity and natural gas. We've seen a little bit of an increase there and a slight rate increase projected for this year. And then sewer materials and supplies is the same thing as the tax levy, but with fuel oil. And that's just estimating a slight rate increase and a marginal consumption increase. On the water side of the house, the MWRA water assessment represents 47.5601% of our budget. The water assessment estimated increase is $291,384. Our budget increase with the MWRA is 8.1091%, and our increase without the MWRA is 2.913. Much like the sewer side of the house and the tax side of the house, we have the contracted step increases through the classification study, overtime adjustments related to those changes. Here we had the administrative expenses and insurance go up a little bit more than the sewer side at $22,954. We've had a $442 increase in electricity and natural gas projected. And for materials and supplies, primarily motor vehicle fuel, it was $16.36 an increase. And that basically sums up where we're at with our budget. If you wanted to take any questions, or Jim?
Actually, before we go to Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Mayo. I just wanted to compliment Joe and his team. I think that, from someone who's there every day, you can see, the effects of, the Collins Center, which was a pretty grueling report. That the employees had to go through, do a lot of work in this as the supervisors, and you can see how they appreciate it. They appreciate it because they're held more accountable and they are getting raises, but they're well-deserved, and that is the market. Joe has done a great job moving this department forward. Was left in great shape, and it's much greater now. And I got to say, Ann is fabulous. I think when I ask Ann for something, it's like I can't even like walk away from my desk, and all of a sudden, bang, the answer's right back, or she's on it. So I know she's helped out with a lot of projects. I think the other thing is that the work in the field and the inspections in the field by another member of the management team there, having that person, Mr. Hunt, go out there and make sure things are done correctly. Not that they weren't before, but really, and going after some of the general contractors, some of the businesses in town. He's right down there doing that. So I'm very happy with how it's going. I think you're going to see this budget really smooth out over the next few years. But I think morale is really up. People are doing a great job. And I think it's, and I'm hoping that the citizens are seeing it, because as they're coming in and things are getting done quicker and better. And I think it's been a great job. And I thank you and your team, Joe, for doing that. So thank you. Just wanted to jump in with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sullivan, who is from Finance Committee on the subcommittee relative to DPW.
Right,
Good evening.
Just briefly, I've been on the subcommittee for a number of years. We continue with in the Finance Committee, having these subcommittees, trying to meet early in the process, trying to understand what the goals and objectives are. Myself and Dennis Hogan are on the subcommittee. I won't attempt to rehash a number of things that have been said, but I was pleased with Joe getting off. Initially, Joe was, we met with Joe the last couple of years as well, but this year, kind of get off on the right foot, talking about some of the priorities, some of the constraints that we thought we might have, and given some of the changes with the Collins report, I thought his team and Mr. Mayo did a nice job trying to get the budget to remain at an appropriate level. And in general, that's how things worked out. So we had several meetings and very productive. We continue to look for possible regionalization in this department if that comes up and opportunities arise. And several of us on the Finance Committee are also very pleased with the potential of a warrant article for road improvements. We've been discussing that on and off year after year, as Mr. Mayo can attest to. So that really covers some of the highlights.
Great. Mr. Sullivan, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Hogan as well, who I know can't be here this evening. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to the council. Any questions? Vice Chair Santos.
Just a comment. I knew you'd be fabulous, Joe. Before you got the job, I was incredibly confident in just the way the budget is presented and how everyone's responded, and what you've done so far, I think, is great. And I've heard wonderful things about you. Whenever we can steal from Melrose, woohoo! And I know Mayor Broder, not too happy.
Not too happy.
Too bad. So I think you're a wonderful addition. So it's a large endeavor, but I really do. I'm very proud that as head of the department and someone who has done everything in the department, you really can bring that view and that lens to the budget, and it shows. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vice Chair Santos. Anyone else? Councilor Chines.
Thank you. First of all, just want to echo Councilor Santos and Mr. Mayo and Councilor Dombrowski on the work that you've done. I'm particularly pleased with sort of the changes you've made around the management structure, and I understand the rationale behind them, and I think, thinking about roles like adding an administrative position into the engineering department, I mean, these are hard people to find, It makes complete sense to bring someone in who can take away some of that administrative work and make sure that we're focusing these, really skilled individuals on the things that we hired them to do. So thank you for doing that. I do have a few questions, one more sort of technical in nature on the personal services fund for the administrative team. It looks like the amount to the tax levy is going down, even though the salaries are going up with the addition of a new position. Have we changed the allocation to water and sewer for any of those roles, or?
So the two primary, both myself and Ann represented in this. We did a comprehensive look at everything from top to bottom that we have, and we kind of saw that we're managing three houses. Mm-hmm. We're managing the tax levy house, we're managing the water house, we're managing the sewer house. So that was something that was shifted. Previous to this, it was split 50-50. So 50% of the number one and number two in charge was on the tax levy, and then 25 and 25 went to the two enterprises. And now it's proportional, so it's a third across the board.
Okay, okay, so that's why you've got that
Exactly.
change.
It kind of aligns, you know, with the proportionality of your time. So
Yep.
we're very much involved in the roadway, but we're also very much involved with water and sewer. You know, so that was something that, you know, made sense to bring up as an effective piece of logistical change.
Thank you. Second question on the snow and ice budget. I know this is, obviously, we've been lucky this year, and knock on wood, we will be grossly underspending the budget for fiscal '20. But when you talk about the 1.3 million average, what time frame does that represent? And, you know, sort of where have we come up with that number? And
So historically, I was very fortunate assuming command after Rick Stinson. One of the fantastic things that Rick did was compile longitudinal data.
Yep.
He had everything going back to the year 2000. So much like the fuel and much like the heat and electricity, he would use 5-year averages to kind of give him his net of what he should be expecting. So it's basically all the weather data from all those years compiled into a list of the expected amount of precipitation you're going to get. And then he also had the amount of events that we had to go out and address things. Black ice, freezing rain, plowable snow. So I inherited all those averages, which was fantastic. From that point in time, you have your averages, you have what, you know, your rates are set through the contracts for the hired help, and then the labor study. So it's a combination of both, and it gives you, you know, your expected winter times your personal services and then your rented equipment, and that nets you out at the 1.334.
okay.
So there's some years where, like this year, we're going to be where we are, and then if the year 2015 struck us again, we'd be singing a different tune.
Yeah. But in terms of the time frame, the 1.3 is based on the 5-year rolling, or is that the entire history that
Oh,
Rick
no,
had?
that would be a 1-year expenditure based on the data from the 5-year average.
Okay, so
Yes.
based on the 5-year
Yes. Yep.
average. You know, the reason I ask is obviously we've made strides in kind of increasing the allocation, increasing the budgeting for snow and ice over the years, which I think absolutely makes sense. You know, I'm wondering if the 850 is sufficient, and I think that's maybe a question for us to reflect on. Or if it should go a little bit higher. You know, again, I know we've been adding about 50,000 each year. But I think it'd be interesting, it'd be helpful, I guess, to understand not just the 5-year rolling, but sort of, you know, I mean, when you talk about climate, a lot can change in 5 years. So
Right.
it'd be interesting to look at that from a 10 to 15-year
I think
time
for
horizon.
the purpose of fiscal '21, we could probably stay right where we are. One of the things you'll hear me preach over and over and over again, and I apologize again, sound like a broken record, but efficiencies. I think there's some opportunities to really dial in on some of that. One of the interesting challenges with this year, too, is that this was the first full appropriation of, you know, what the new labor study shows us. So that's something I'd like to see for a year before I came back and felt comfortable asking for more of an appropriation. You know, we know with 850 we can get ourselves off to a really good start and, you know, hopefully manage that effectively so that that's a number that works. So I'd say it's probably most feasible to just put a pause on that and kind of see
Okay.
where we run out maybe. But certainly something that if the future warrants it, worth bringing up to the table.
Okay. Great, and last question, if I may. In the memo that you shared with us, sort of talking about the budget, one of the things you referenced was sort of the facility conditions with the DPW facility. So we voted last year on warrant articles around, you know, feasibility studies for the facility, as well as, I think there was a warrant article on some sort of urgent short-term repairs.
Yep.
Could you speak a little bit about, particularly the latter, what you've been able to do with that?
Sure. So the first repairs that we did, the most pressing need that we had a floor in our larger vehicle storage garage that was cracking and literally falling apart.
Yep.
The issues inside of that floor related to safety have been repaired. The next project, so we went through the whole building and triaged kind of where our needs would need to be. The next project on deck, we're just waiting for the weather to cooperate a little bit more. We actually have some major roof replacement that we need to do because they're getting pretty punky and becoming more like a sieve than
Yeah.
a protective barrier.
Doesn't do so well when you're trying to maintain and extend the life of your equipment.
No. So then from that point in time, we actually have brought in a structural engineer because we have a question about the floor in our facility maintenance bays. But for anybody on our staff, I gotta say, the engineering group is fantastic. They are eager to take work and hit the ground and get busy and really knock a lot of projects out of the park. But with something like that, we need some more technical expertise. So from that point, it's been evaluated, it's getting looked into. I'm trying to come up with, what a number, do I need a repair, do I need a replacement? But the two most pressing needs with the roof and the floor in the other building have been taken care of. And then hopefully in the short term, I'll have an answer and hopefully enough funding left over to be able to, at least get the floor on the other side of the house safe.
Great.
And as far as the feasibility study, we're actually on the agenda for the permanent building committee next week. I have to apologize. I was on the agenda in October, coincidentally the day my wife went into labor with my daughter. So
You don't need to apologize.
it got
for that.
delayed a little bit, but it's certainly something that we're looking forward to getting underway and seeing what the results may be.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime.
Any further questions, thoughts, comments? Councilor Smith-Galvin.
Thank you. This is great. And welcome, Anne. You and I've already had a little bit of a chance to work together. The increase by 22,000 for electricity. I mean, I understand that you have very good records on your kilowatt hour usage, but it strikes me that that's something over time we should be trying to reduce. And every time I walk into town hall and a window's open in the middle of winter, I know that's for comfort's sake, but it seems to me that there's probably some audits or energy efficiency type things. And I just wonder if you've given that any thought.
Absolutely. So what are the interesting things we are looking at? Depending on how town meeting goes, the potential of a recommissioning to the public safety building and or town hall. As you know, we were kind of the right place at the right time for the solar project on the municipal building. That will affect the enterprise and should net us a savings there, but researching and acquiring the means to have more sustainable infrastructure projects happening, as a regular thing is something that we're certainly all over. I could see that if we have the opportunity to add solar and different, efficiencies as we can, it's certainly something that we want to do. So anytime we enter into any project, if we can maximize or make ourselves run better, that's certainly what we're going to be doing. So I'm optimistic that the electricity and natural gas, is going to be something that with, some focused effort and intentful spending and fixes that we're going to be able to really dial that in and hopefully start seeing that trend reverse a little bit.
I'm glad you're focusing on it. Thank you.
You're welcome anytime.
Any further questions, thoughts, or comments? No? Mr. Conway and your entire team, I will thank you so much for preserving the budgeting for the Nahant Street Yard Waste Facility. And to have us on, I think it'll be on my tombstone, but every Wednesday, every Saturday, every second and fourth Sunday.
It's 53 total days this year.
With a couple exceptions, obviously, when there's curbside pickup and the like. But I have been hearing from so many people that it's a quality of life issue for them, and it's made getting to the facility easier, which is huge because we want to encourage that. And I think having that type of a schedule, so you just know if it's Saturday, you can go to the pit. That's something that has just been a real benefit. So in terms of a value add to this budget, I do think that is one that we're seeing with that. So I thank you for that. And I remind everyone at home, if you haven't gotten your Nahant Street Yard Waste Facility permits yet, you can get them for $25 at Town Hall at the DPW window, or also online as well. The facility opens on the 4th of April, and it'll be open probably until December.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting,
maybe
indeed,
even longer.
Yes. So I've already gotten my pit. I'm number 48, I believe. So we've got a ways to go. My hope is that we get to 2,500 or maybe 3,000. So we'll get there.
I think so.
Thank you. So seeing no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the DPW budget as outlined by Mr. Gill with the assist from Mr. Conway in the amount of $6,349,868.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Chines. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then, the motion before you is the approval of DPW budget number 29 for fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $6,349,868. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Snow and ice.
Snow and ice and.
I'm sorry. So now, next we'll do snow and ice. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the snow and ice budget as outlined by Mr. Gill.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Chines. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the snow and ice budget as outlined by Mr. Gill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Third is stormwater, or sewer, I'm sorry, is sewer. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the sewer budget as outlined by Mr. Gill.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Chines. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the sewer budget for fiscal year 2021 as outlined. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Gill. Thank you, Mr. Conway.
Water.
I'm sorry, we have one more.
We need some water.
We're spending too much money here tonight. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the water budget as outlined by Mr. Gill.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Donaco. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the approval of the final budget related to DPW, the water budget, as outlined by Mr. Gill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 6-0, the motion carries unanimously. And with that, I'll thank Mr. Gill, Mr. Conway, Ms. Wade,
Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. Hogan as well. Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Continued great work. Item number 12 on the agenda is related to the Public Safety Building, and specifically the Public Safety Building Reassessment Committee. By way of background, I'll remind everyone watching that back in the fall of 2018, following a vote in support at town meeting, followed by a vote that was against the project through a special election, we created, this body created a Public Safety Building Reassessment Committee. And I've been working and chairing that committee since that time. And I just want to go through and provide the public and this body with information in terms of where we stand, what the process has been like from fall of 2018 through to the present. Then I'll introduce our Chief Scory, who will then go through more of the details and specifics relative to the scope and focus of the project specifically. But in terms of process, we created a reassessment committee in the fall of 2018. So we established this project team that included residents, community organizations, and varied town interests. And we had 2 residents at large, representation from the Wakefield Alliance Against Violence, representation from Wake Up, Permanent Building Committee, Finance Committee, Town Council, Board of Health, Chief and Deputy Chief of Police, Chief of the Fire Department, Emergency Management Director Walsh, and Public Works Director, along with the town administrator. Now, with respect to the police department, and this is an important statistic that I think a lot of people aren't all that familiar with. In 1950, the police department had 34 officers and 4,000 calls for the year. Fast forward to 2019, we now have 47 officers plus civilian clinicians, and last year the department fielded 18,900 calls, so more than 4 times the volume of calls when you compare 1950 to 2019. This is significant because if you look at the two photos, one of them is the police station in 1950. The other is the police station in 2019. It's materially the same with some, modest modifications. So as a part of our process, the reassessment committee engaged HKT Architects to assist us in reevaluating the original 2017 proposal. HKT is an expert in the design of public safety buildings across the Commonwealth. They had worked on the original design, and it made logical sense to bring them back on board based upon the community input that we received. Now, the reassessment committee ended up forming 4 different subcommittees, each of which was charged with analyzing all components of the project, and this was primarily based upon community input. So at our very first meeting, the reassessment committee identified all of the issues that we had heard, all the questions, all of the thoughts, all the ideas that had been part of the public discourse, be it at town meeting, be it in the run-up to the vote on the public safety building, be it community discussion following that. So we looked at it from each and every angle, and we broke this down to 4 different subcommittees. The first was potential sites for a new building. The second, potential funding sources. The third, priorities and functionality. And the fourth, communication. So in terms of deliverables for the committee, we had first the alternative site evaluations. So we looked at this and said, where else could we potentially have a public safety building? To build a new facility in an alternative location, best estimates put us at about $25 to $34 million, plus the cost of land acquisition. So this is just the structure itself. Mind you, there were no identified plots of land that were for sale that this $25 to $34 million structure could be built upon, but just looking at the sheer numbers relative to that construction, it presented to the committee as cost prohibitive. Another option was to raise and rebuild on the current site. That would be a cost of approximately $12 million, but that also did not include temporary relocation costs, which, given the nature of the work that the department does, would have been a significant additional expenditure for that temporary relocation, not to mention the level of disruption, and speaking with the chief, that would have created. And then the third was to look at expanding our current building, the current proposal that is before you. And those costs have risen now. When they were first presented before this town and first voted upon favorably at town meeting, they were lower. We're now at $9.6 million, and that includes, I believe, about $500,000 in contingencies that are built into that. Another question that came up during this process leading up to the creation of the committee was alternative funding sources, a reasonable question and a question that we often ask whenever we're looking at any endeavors that the town's looking to do. Is there state money available? Is there federal money available? Envision Wakefield is a perfect example of that. Mr. Mayo, along with representation from the Finance Committee, specifically focused on investigating different grant opportunities. I know that there was discussion about some nearby communities that had new facilities, completely different set of criteria that was applied in order to allow for that funding. And I'll allow Mr. Mayo to speak to that further, but that just was not a viable option for us. If it could have been, certainly we would have taken advantage of that.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yes, please.
We looked at a number of communities, particularly Malden was brought up by a lot of people, or a number of people. Malden, different demographics. They were able to get a kind of Mass Works type grant. They had to actually go back and ask for more because they ran out of money the first time. I've often spoken to our delegation, it'd be great to have like we have the SBA for schools, it would be great to have a public safety kind of SBA equivalent. That's not there right now. So there really are no grants or alternative funding available that we would really qualify for something like this. Could you get a couple $100,000 or something? We'll probably try to do that anyway as we go through it, but to complete this project, the short answer is no. It's gonna fall on us.
So the next subcommittee was the priority scope and design, and this was really the opportunity for the department, along with some other members, to review the building deficiencies in more detail and prioritize based upon critical needs. So really, they went through, they identified all of the problems in the building, and there are plenty, and then kind of ranked or prioritized them to see if there is a way in which we could perhaps more narrow the scope of the project, or identify some of the key deficiencies without going to the full extent of the reconstruction that had been previously designed. The short answer was that the design that was offered up to the town appears to be the most reasonable and efficient means of addressing a number of significant concerns that must be addressed, is what it comes down to. So there wasn't some sort of alternative plan B or plan C that achieve the same objectives within the same kind of cost parameters to really address the fundamental issues that are driving this reevaluation. And Another significant consideration of the committee was analyzing the building design with a consideration for future growth. There had been a lot of talk about would we have the department growing out of this renovation in short period of time, and it's a reasonable concern that people had, and we further vetted that as a committee and made a determination that in fact that is not the case. And as I go on, you'll see exactly what we have available for future growth there. And then the fourth subcommittee related to communication. And this was to create materials so that residents could make an informed decision. This was not to advocate one way or the other, but instead provide to the community all the facts. Let them know the analysis that had been done, and let them understand all that had been considered and the financial realities of this. And tonight, I'm happy to announce that we are rolling out on our website, and at the end of this presentation, I'll be able to show you a series of informational materials. These include a number of videos that are very informative for the public, including a virtual tour of the facility so you understand firsthand. It also includes a number of frequently asked questions. They're understandably a project of this magnitude. There are a lot of questions that come up. Those are answered. And there's detailed explanations and answers to some of the most popular and important questions. The videos also talk about the process and procedure, again, how we got here and where we're looking to go going forward, and includes interviews with police leadership as well. And in addition to that content, which will be available on WCAT and also is available on our website now, we'll also have in-person learning opportunities at an upcoming public forum and upcoming events. We're trying to take advantage of all the opportunities to get the information out to everyone that is interested in the project. So the results, after our extensive analysis of the structure and reviewing of the operations, how the police station functions, include that the committee is now presenting a design that remedies today's challenges and incorporates best practices to support and grow services of the department for the decades into the future. An important highlight is that this design will ultimately create a 40% increase in usable space. And that is significant, as the chief will go into in further detail, because we have a lot of civilian personnel, we have a lot of services that we provide, family services and the like, and we are lacking capacity now to be able to appropriately support our department. A 40% increase is a significant increase, given the blueprint or the footprint we have to work with on. This also would potentially accommodate a staff of more than 60 personnel. So this would allow for, again, potential future growth for decades to come. This is not to say that the plan now is to grow the department to 60 or above. That is not the intention at this point, but it provides the capacity to do that. So as policing, 21st century policing may change, mid-21st century policing may be that much more different. And so we have the flexibility. This building allows, the space that we create allows for the department to be nimble to meet the challenges as we go forward in the decades to come. Next steps in the process will include a public information session that will be held on Tuesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. That'll be in the Public Safety Building first floor meeting room. And then the proposal will be, is anticipated to be brought before a town meeting which will begin on May 4th at 7 p.m. And with that, I will turn it over to the Chief Scory, who will then go into details relative to the building itself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. First, I'd like to recognize some of the members of the Public Safety Building Reassessment Committee who are here today in support of the project. We have Joey Garrish from the Wakefield Alliance Against Violence. We have Mark Moschio, who is a public member of the committee. We have Fire Chief Sullivan, and we have James Sullivan, who is from the Finance Committee. We have multiple meetings. They were always there, very supportive of the program, so the committee, so I'd like to thank them for being here tonight. Before I get into the PowerPoint here, if I could, I'd like to get into a little history of the police building itself, and some of this will be repetitive of what you already spoke about, but I think it's important. The police station was originally built in 1950 when there were 34 officers on the police force. Police records for the entire year were documented in a ledger with a total of 4,000 calls for service. And policing was much different at that time. Officers walked a beat, and the outcome of calls was documented by the shift sergeant. Most calls required little follow-up and were over when the officer cleared the call. At the time, there was virtually no technology being used, as even police radios were in their infancy. From 2001 to 2003, the Wakefield Public Safety Building project took place. A new fire station was built, and the original police station building was renovated with a small addition added to the rear of the building. The 2003 addition to the police building did not increase the amount of usable space other than the detention center. The rest of the addition houses the underground parking and the areas dedicated to building system rooms that support both the police and fire sides of the building. These rooms include 911, the boiler room, generator, electric room, IT servers, radio equipment, janitorial space, and the elevator. Why do we need this project now if the police station was renovated in 2003? The answer is simple enough. The size and layout of the building does not fit our current needs. In fact, it did not meet our needs when it reopened in 2003. The building was undersized from the start, and our roles within the community have grown immensely since then. Even though the building was renovated 17 years ago, the plans for that renovation were done 22 years ago in 1998. When you put that into perspective, that was before 9/11, before smartphones, and before social media. Society is very different today than it was in 1998, and the demands on law enforcement are much greater. Our officers handled 18,900 calls for service just this past year. Many of these calls were complicated and time-consuming, requiring extensive follow-up. We have more equipment now than we did when the building was renovated. We have 47 highly dedicated and professional police officers working out of a building that was originally designed for 34 officers. Some officers are assigned to specialized positions that didn't exist in 1998, such as school resource officers and a family services officer. We are supported by a mental health clinician, recovery coach, and domestic violence advocate who all work out of offices that were converted from closets. These rooms have no temperature controls and no outside light. We also need locker space for our parking enforcement officers and their equipment. The PowerPoint presentation you're about to see will show the deficiency of the current building and how this proposed project meets both our current and future needs. All right, let's see if I get this right. Where am I pointing? Oh, there we go. All right, so there's a breakdown of the committee members for the Public Safety Building Reassessment Committee. So on the top left, you see what the building looked like in 1950 when it was built. And at that time, there were 34 officers, 1 civilian employee. And on the bottom right, you see what it looks like now. Not much of a difference. Now with 47 officers, 1 support staff, 1 mental health clinician, 1 recovery coach, 1 respond advocate, and 2 parking enforcement officers. In 2003, the Public Safety Building renovation project happened. The existing structure was used for the police side renovation. It's now a 70-year-old building. The fire side is a 17-year-old building that extends out to the sidewalk. And you can see from the bottom pictures, the police building does not go out to the sidewalk, and the fire side does. This is the addition that was added to the police building. It's on the rear of the building on the Crescent Street side. The renovation did not result in the addition of critical space for police functions. This police building addition was used for the 911 room, electrical room, boiler room, generator room, radio system room, and IT room. There are water leaks from the roof in several areas, including the IT equipment room. And we also had to add alarms into dispatch because these rooms, at times, the air conditioning will fail in these rooms. The rooms will tend to overheat. The only way we could monitor that was to put alarms into dispatch so the officers in dispatch would know that there was a cooling issue with those rooms. If they overheat too much with the electronic equipment, we lose crucial equipment, and that's happened in the past. So there was an independent study done in the public safety building, and that was done by HKT Architects. And what they found was that the police department building is undersized. The front lobby area has accessibility and safety issues. Water leaks create critical risk to the 911 system and IT equipment. There are environmental issues. Evidence storage room is not located in the proper area and is too small. And the overall layout is not conducive to best practices. An analysis determined that the most efficient and cost-effective means to add usable space would be through structurally independent horizontal additions adjacent to the existing building. Here we have some pictures of the lobby. You can see there are multiple signs in the lobby, and that is just to guide people to the right spot. We have found over the years that people have a very difficult time navigating their way through the lobby.
and we have tried every form of wayfinding that we could think of, and as much as we thought it would work, it still doesn't. So the lobby is not user-friendly. Guiding signs have been added for the public. Police records officers are constantly directing walk-ins to the fire department, and the lobby is only manned during regular business hours during the week, and that's when the records office is open. So if someone comes in during non-business hours, they need to pick up this phone on the wall to get police service. Critical response time is lost because there are no police officers in the lobby of the police station. Here we have some pictures from the first floor of the building. On the bottom left is the clinician's office, which is a converted closet. That room is 5 feet wide, no windows, no temperature control. She currently has a space heater going right now to stay warm down there. The middle picture is Officer Randall's office. She's our family services officer. That was also a converted closet. That room is 5 feet wide with limited space. And the picture on the right is a water room that's off of the garage, and that's where we store our canine equipment. Some of that equipment has been ruined in the past due to mold, due to the moisture in that room. The locker rooms have unusable lockers due to columns, support columns that are in there. Both the male and female locker rooms are nearly at capacity. Same pictures as before. The roll call room is also an issue. That's far too small for daily briefings, and it's too small for us to hold any training classes in. So when we want to do training, we have to reserve the community room. For storage, we're very limited on storage. The picture on the top left are our patrol bicycles. We originally, when the building was built, we had a room off of the Sally Port for the bicycles. That had to be repurposed when we made the clinician's office and the family services officer's office. We had to move the armor's equipment upstairs to where the bicycle room was. The bicycles became displaced and are now underneath a stairwell. The picture in the top right is a property storage area that's in the parking garage. We have found that that is not usable due to the amount of dirt that gets on the property that we're trying to store. Some items are stored on blocks due to water damage. And storing equipment off-site is difficult because we need it needs to be readily accessed. And if it's off-site, we don't have that. Here are some pictures of the prisoner bay, which is too small and creates a safety issue. As you can see from the top two pictures, the prisoner van, the back goes right up to the back wall, and the front is basically right up against the garage door. There are two prisoner compartments in the van, one on the side, and the other is accessed from the back. So if we have to separate prisoners for transport to court, we can put one prisoner in the side compartment. We then have to open the door to the Sally Port, move the vehicle partly out, and then bring the other prisoner out, put him in the back, which creates a security issue because now we have an open door while we're moving a prisoner to the van. The support columns are also used as opposed to beams. So as you can see on the bottom right, this is the Sally Port entrance on the left. So when a cruiser pulls into that spot in the Sally Port, they have to actually pull in at an angle to be able to get the car to fit without striking the column, which then becomes an issue with the door opening up, and you can barely see it in the picture, but there's a bungee cord wrapped around the column that actually holds the door open when we're moving a prisoner around. And then the bottom left picture is what once was the bicycle room and is now the armorer's office, and that's off of the Sally Port. So this is the proposed addition, and some of the highlights of that is the front of the police side will be bumped out to match the fire side, and the new entry will provide intuitive flow of foot traffic for citizens to access both police and fire representatives. The new dispatch center location in the lobby allows for 24-hour access for citizens, and it creates a facility that accommodates both present and future departments. In the bottom picture, you'll see the Crescent Street side. The Sally Ports have actually been bumped out so that they're large enough to accommodate the prisoner van, so we don't have any security issues there. And this is what the proposed first floor plan would look like. It creates a better flow. The building itself is reorganized. So what happens here is the general evidence area is moved to the bottom floor, and it basically doubles in size. Right now, we're at capacity for evidence storage. We have to keep evidence for quite some time because even though cases may be disposed of in court, there's still an appeals process, which mandates that we maintain the evidence for anywhere from 15 to 20 years after a case is disposed of. What you'll also see is there's a new locker room down there, and we've identified that as a women's locker room. It has 10 lockers in it. Currently, we have 4 female officers. I fully expect that number to increase over the years. The locker room that they're in now only has 8 lockers, and they're pretty much squeezed in there. They're smaller lockers. There's not a lot of space, so we've given them a bigger locker room, and we'll reserve what they use now for their locker room is a spare locker room, more or less an overflow locker room. If we ever have growth in the department, we can use that space. You'll also see that in so the future space that's identified is a darker blue, and it has a yellow border around it. This is space that we identified for future growth. So you'll see in the records office, there's a new extra workstation for a records officer. And in dispatch, there's also a 3rd dispatch station. So that if we ever added say a civilian dispatcher, there will be a workstation for that person. This is the 2nd floor plan. The back where the green hours are, that is the expansion of the Sally Port. The white area below that, those are the holding cells, the detention area. To the left of that are the service rooms that we spoke of. And then we also have moved the detectives to the 2nd floor. They've moved from the 3rd to the 2nd floor. And you'll see there are 2 workstations for future detectives. And I need my glasses to read the bottom part there. What we have in the bottom part is a future space for a family services officer and a clinician. So we've expanded that space for future growth as well. And then on the other side of that floor, we have a roll call room that has more seating, and also a larger workstation for the sergeants and the patrol officers. And then when we go to the 3rd floor, the administrative staff has now moved from the 2nd to the 3rd floor, and we have identified 2 rooms on the top of the screen. There's either future offices or future storage space. There's a future office in the middle, and then we have a future office for a lieutenant, and then we also have future space for an administrative staff. So this plan allows for better flow throughout the building. Right now, evidence is on the 3rd floor, report rooms in the basement. So officers come in, they document their evidence, they now have to climb to the 3rd floor, find a storage locker to put it in, go back down, document that in the computer. There's a lot of running around the building because nothing really flows the way it should. So the new layout of the building allows it to flow efficiently, and it allows the people who should be working near each other to be working near each other, and it allows for future space for growth. And these are all things that have been deficient over the years. It was deficient when the building was renovated in 2003. We knew we didn't have enough space, and now we're just bursting at the seams. We have additional support staff with the mental health clinician, with the recovery coach, the domestic violence advocate, and these are positions, it's more likely than not, as our role in the social services industry grows, at some point we'll need another clinician. We may have to add another officer as a family services officer. There may be positions that I don't even know of yet that we'll have to create to meet future needs, and we'll need space for those people to work out of. And this plan is the most feasible, and it meets our needs. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chief.
Oh, wait, I'm not done. I have one thing. Got a little carried away with the floor plans there. So the project benefits. Dispatch would move to the lobby along with the records division to make the public safety building more user-friendly for our customers. There would be immediate access to an officer in an emergency. Privacy concerns for sensitive cases would be alleviated. The layout of the building would be reconfigured to better serve the officers and utilize best practices. Prisoner security in the Sally Port would be upgraded. System upgrades to protect our critical infrastructure. How does it allow for growth in the future? The current total area of the police side of the public safety building, including the garage, lobby, community room, and support rooms, is 20,529 square feet. The lobby and community room total 1,797 square feet. The garage totals 8,730 square feet. The support rooms, they take up 2,090 square feet. That leaves 7,912 square feet of usable space, 1/4 of which is dedicated to the detention area. This proposed project would increase the amount of usable space by 40%. Increase in usable space meets our current needs and will allow for future growth. It will allow our police force to grow with the community and create space for additional support personnel. We found this quote from the 1949 Wakefield Annual Town Report, and this was written about the police building when it was built. And the quote is, "This building should be large enough to house the department for the next 20 or 25 years." And that was 70 years ago. Thank you for your time, and we hope we have everyone's support at May's town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any comments, questions? Vice Chair Santos.
So, I have mixed feelings on this, I'll explain it. Thank you so much for members of the reassessment committee that are here. Talk about deja vu. I'm pretty sure I saw this presentation a few years ago, and this process is much more robust. This process, we got more information out, and the committee did a fabulous job. But it's a little annoying that what we suggested a few years ago, or a couple years ago, $1 million less is exactly what we're going with now. And my frustration is with a few people standing up at town meeting, you know, man and woman-splaining to us, those of us that were very heavily involved in this, who went on tours, who met with you all, who looked at the deficiencies as to why we didn't do a good job. And I'm not taking it personally. I'm just, the vote happened, vote was voted on, and then it was, you know, a la garage a little bit, changed. So I'm glad that you get to put your stamp of approval. That's one of the good things on it, that as chief now, you maybe can make some tweaks. The committee did a fabulous job at looking at this, but it's a little frustrating that we could have had it done in part of, maybe not, rush is not the word, but there are critical problems there. And as someone who was in law enforcement, married to law enforcement, when I saw what's in the station, it was really jarring to me, some of the issues. And that's why I think we wanted to move forward a couple years ago with this project. So hopefully, this fabulous project that you're putting forth now, and we'll have a public, people can have some questions and answers, and then at town meeting, we hopefully won't get pushed back as to, you know, like we got last time. So I want to thank you, thank the committee, absolutely. And it's, you absolutely, 100%, you have my support, because, again, as someone who met victims in police stations for years and understand that it's just not viable, how that's set up for our citizens who are in crisis, and for your people to do the best they can. So, yeah, I'm in support. I'm just a little annoyed that we couldn't have done it for $1 million less.
Thank you.
I'll say on that, these issues that you point out, they remain, and they're going to continue to remain, and they need to be remedied. I commend the committee for looking at this from every angle. We looked at it. I mean, we literally had these subcommittees that were focused on the particular areas. We had basically a brainstorming session of making sure we had anything we had heard from anyone. During the course of the first rollout of this, to make sure that we had an answer to every question, to make sure that that we looked at it from every angle, to make sure that we can make adjustments. There are some design adjustments in this in this design in terms of expanded growth, but I mean, we're talking about ostensibly a very similar project. I'm with you in that the last thing I want to do is spend $1 more than we need to as a town, but there's also a cost to inaction, and I see even the members of the committee shaking their head. The longer we go on with this, the $1 million more you're talking about becomes $1.5 million, then becomes $2 million. And so there's not a value add for a delay at this point. That's just the bottom line. I respect the will of the voters to have voted as they did. The committee inherited the circumstances as they did. And I credit every committee member. I believe I speak for everyone. They went in with an open mind. We had, including some of some folks that were opposed to the project. Even we brought onto the committee to make sure that we had everyone's voice heard as a part of it. And the bottom line is, we arrived at a very similar conclusion. And I think that's a reflection of enough thought that had gone in, first time, but certainly. I think we can more confidently present before the community that we've looked at this from every angle. That's where we're at. Councilor Butt.
Two comments. Did the committee vote to put this proposal?
Yes.
And what was the vote?
I don't have to, I think it was.
There was, the only split on the committee was whether we would go forward in last November or April. But everyone wanted to go forward, except there was one abstention.
There's one abstention.
Okay.
Yeah, but everyone was 11-1 or with one abstention.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful to
Yeah.
know as we have some committee members, but not all the committee members.
And that was one of the challenges, because there was a cost to having this potentially at Springtown meeting as compared with Fall Town meeting. I think the consensus, and ultimately, the vote fell that way, was it was better to wait until Springtown meeting so that we had all the information out and had a systematic way of informing the public, as compared with feeling as if we were rushing it at Fall 2019 town meeting. So ultimately, the vote, it was unanimous, save for the one abstention, but the vote ultimately leaned towards the spring versus fall. Councilor Chines.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you to everyone on the committee, and Chief, to you for the work that has gone into this. I probably share Councilor Santos's frustration on behalf of you guys that, it does take a lot of rework. I did have one question, then a couple of thoughts as we think about town meeting. The one question I had, and I'm not advocating for this option, but on the full rebuild option, I'm curious as to why it is 2 to 3 times more expensive to build on a new site rather than the current site. I mean, if you're talking about a ground-up building, in either case, given that you're not including the cost of land in the new site outside of the current location, or including the relocation or sort of the temporary location cost if you rebuild, kind of raise and rebuild. What's the reason for the cost difference there?
My understanding is not only the land purchase, but if you're going to build off-site, you want to build a much bigger building. And it's
Okay.
going to be, we're looking now at an addition that will bring us to the 24,000 square foot mark. If you were going to build an entirely new building, you'd want to look at about the 39,000 square foot mark.
Okay. So it is fundamental. I mean, the land acquisition cost was excluded, so it really is just.
It's the size
if
of
you
the
had
building.
the opportunity to build new, you would build something that was a much more sort of robust building than what
Correct.
we're talking about here. Okay, thank you. That's helpful
I think
clarification.
you're also building some other off-site. You're gonna build a parking lot, you're gonna build, you have drainage issues, you have all those other infrastructure issues you're going
And was
in.
that rebuilding the fire with the police as well?
No.
That was just police.
And I should point out too that if we had a site,
Well, yeah.
that was another
Yeah.
consideration. Right? We had
Right.
a whole siting approach to it, in terms of identifying alternatives.
We do have tons of undeveloped land that the town owns, so. Thinking ahead to town meeting, and thinking about sort of how we present this, I guess a couple of requests that I would have, I think, as this does come back to town meeting. One is it does look like largely the same proposal, though it sounds like there have been some changes to it. I think it would be helpful to have clarity on what actually has evolved from the prior proposal. To some extent, if that helps to explain the greater price tag, obviously some of that is just time, but, if we've added more opportunity to build for the future, how has that factored into the plan and in terms of the additional cost? I think it'd be helpful to get that information out there. I think the other thing that would be beneficial is to have a little bit more detail on some of the possible design elements that were looked at for the renovation proposal and why we discounted those. So I'm assuming you guys looked at, what happens if you had a budget of X million dollars for a renovation versus the 9, what wouldn't we be able to do for those, and why are those not ideal? I think having that information in front of town meeting would be beneficial
The limiting
for the
factor
discussion.
was the space, the footprint of where the building is. We only have so much of a footprint to work with.
Yep. It's a little bit like a Jenga puzzle in a way, in that there were ranked priorities by the department, and we identified these were basically like must-haves no matter what. Some that were very high priority, but maybe there was some give on that. And when you kind of tried to fit in the top priorities into the building, you found yourself in a position where you weren't able to kind of shave off very much because of the design.
But I guess that's what I'm saying, is I think it'd be helpful to see that list of must-have priorities, because what I wouldn't want the discussion to do is to kind of get to what's sort of the fat in the proposal if the reality is there just isn't any. I think having that information be, be public, having that be explicit, whether it's in the materials that have been developed, up to this point or as part of the town meeting presentation, I think would be really beneficial in making sure that everyone's working off of the same fact base in terms of, why this is the proposal that makes sense. I supported this enthusiastically the last time it came up. I think it is the right direction to go in, and I will be supporting it again in town meeting, but I also want to make sure that we all do our due diligence to, see that we make the case to the folks in Wakefield that have to vote on it.
Thank you.
Councilor Donaco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, you did a great job on the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'd try to do a different approach on this. We shouldn't be waiting for town meeting. Should fully utilize April 7th. Make that a mock presentation. Go in at that and make sure that everyone attends that meeting. And then, and give them all the information, as much information as possible at that one meeting. I think that would be a little bit more easier for people to attend or may not be able to attend town meeting, or find that there's no opposition to it.
One of
Okay?
our goals, and the reason we put this off until the May town meeting, was so that we had the opportunity to get as much information out there as we could. And I think
Right.
that the videos that were produced, the opportunity to have this open meeting on April 7th, it's going to allow people to have the opportunity to look at the videos, come in, ask questions they want. We have frequently asked questions on the website. People can email their questions, we'll answer them. We will do whatever we can to answer people's questions about this project.
Great, that's what it should be, very informative.
I think it's important to underscore what the chief was saying with that. That April 7th meeting is meant to be an interactive meeting, that where people can, if you can't be present, you can participate by submitting questions.
Correct.
That will be answered. It'll also be televised on WCAT as well, so if you can't make it, you can certainly watch it. And then I should identify now here, if you go to this is our homepage of our website. If you scroll down to the bottom, you see we have the Envision project, the middle there. If you click on that box on our homepage, that'll bring you to all the information we currently have. So this is our information rollout. You can scroll through, you can look at the videos we've talked about, and take a virtual tour, get questions answered. Our goal here is to make sure that every resident of Wakefield is as fully informed as possible about this project. And if you have a question, it will be answered. If you want to see what the facility looks like by taking a tour, you can take the virtual tour and see it. But there has been no stone unturned to get us to this point, and I do not want to see us going in a direction where we end up having to spend more money at some later date because we're not getting the return on it. It's just perpetuating the problems we have. It's creating unsafe and compromised working conditions. The department has done a phenomenal job of protecting and supporting the public, notwithstanding the facilities that they're working within. So there's a real cost to inaction here. And I think that's something from the pure economics of it. If we don't do it, it's going to cost more in the future. And that's just what it comes down to. And we're seeing that play out already. And the architects project out what that looks like. The percentage increase every 6 months is significant, and it keeps escalating. You're not going to see the building costs coming down, is what it comes down to.
I think we're also going to be at Parent University.
We are,
on
March 21st.
21st, right. So we're going to be there too.
Any further comments or questions?
I just have something.
Councilor Butt.
Unrelated. You have one new addition to your team picture. Just wanted to say congratulations about Hunter Rando.
We do.
Yeah.
We have a lot of additions recently.
That's-
With a younger police force, it's actually difficult to keep up with the additions. But
So
yes,
we
we
just
do.
want to say congratulations to Amy. I sit
Yes.
with her on the Human Rights Commission, and
Interestingly enough, Hunter Rando entered the world an hour before another one of our officers had a child on the same floor, 2 rooms away. So it was a busy day for the WPD.
That's great.
Any further thoughts or questions? All right, otherwise, again, I encourage everyone to go onto the town's website, onto the homepage, click on the box at the bottom for the public safety building information, and then go ahead, check out the videos, check out the frequently asked questions, attend the forum, submit questions to us in advance of the forum. We want to make sure that every question that you have has been answered well in advance of town meeting, and certainly there'll be plenty more information provided at town meeting. But in the lead up, every question should and will be answered. Great, thank you. All right, so moving on to, Chief, we appreciate it.
He can't leave.
I got told I have to stay.
You did. So Chief, moving on to item number 13, this is a town warrant, a town meeting warrant article for the May 4th, 2020 town meeting. I'll turn it over to Chief Scory relative to this article.
So this is an amendment to existing legislation that we have to allow our retired officers to work details. At one time, we had a good number of retirees working details, and then there was a mishap. And as a result, we wanted to change some language here that related to the 111F laws, which is the injured on duty status. So there was an amendment that came before you last year to amend Section 7, and I further amended it to amend Section 1, because what I'd like to do is allow our retirees to work past 65 until the age of 68. So would you like me to read the entire amendment, or would you just like me to read the part that I changed?
I think you can read the part you changed, because again, this is available online, so
Okay.
everyone has access to it.
So Section 1, I changed the language there, and the part that I changed, special police officers shall not be subject to the same maximum age restrictions as applied to regular Wakefield police officers under Chapter 32 of the general laws, but shall not be eligible to serve as special police officers if they have reached the age of 68. So to allow our retirees to work details, they would still have to pass a medical exam. We have some very well able-bodied people that would like to work. And to be honest with you, I think it's a great way to keep our retirees in the loop. This is a profession where you live and breathe this job every day that you come in. And I've seen a lot of separation anxiety when people retire. And when you see the retirees come in, whether it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, it's just great for them to kind of stay up on things and for us to still see them and keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing okay. And I'll be honest, they're probably some of the hardest working people I've ever met. So we're always looking for detail officers. We have a lot of projects that go on in town, and they're very helpful. And we'd love to have them up till the age of 68. And then the second part that came before you last year would just change the language about 111F, which was the injured on duty status, and then the Section 2, Chapter 32, 85H, which has to do with disability.
Thank you for that, Chief. Do we have any questions for the Chief relative to that proposed warrant article? If not, we'll vote on that at a later date.
When we do the articles.
When we do the
I want to say
articles.
that a big problem is we do have a problem filling a lot of the details right now, and this will help us. And we say, well, people say, well, so what, you didn't fill the detail. Well, that means that in most instances, construction stops. So that takes a little bit longer, it's more convenient for the neighborhood and what have you, so this will really help us. Or we end up getting officers from other communities, which are great, and they don't know the streets as well, they don't know the ins and outs, you know, what's over there, so this will really help us out. And I agree with the chief that some of our best detail officers, and I think that Councilor Donaco will attest on the Festival Italia, some of our best detail officers are those that have been retired, come out there for the day, so they do a great job. So this will help us, and we don't get hit with the cost of the medical that we did before, so it's a win-win for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. And so again, we'll vote on this article in conjunction with the rest of the warrants at a later meeting. So,
Thank you.
Chief, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
in and all the information.
Have a good night.
Item number 14 is the setting of public hearings. We actually have 3 public hearings to set this evening. The first of which is for an all-alcohol license for Ben 123, doing business as Bamboo House. They've requested a public hearing to be held on April 13th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Chine, seconded by Vice Chair Santos. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the setting of the public hearing for Ben 123 Inc. for April 13th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
I know we have a vote of 5-0 with Councilor Donaco needing to leave for the evening. Item 14B is a the continuation of a public hearing for the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. This was originally set for January 27th. It relates to pole locations at 4 Del Carmine Street. They're seeking to have that hearing continued to March 23rd at 7:05 p.m. With that, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Chines. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the setting of the continued public hearing for the Gas and Light Department to March 23rd at 7:05 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 5-0, the motion carries unanimously. And finally, the third public hearing is a request of the Gas and Light Department to set a public hearing, again for March 23rd, 2020, for a petition for pole location at 1 Murray Street. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Chines. God bless you. So with that, is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion before you is the setting of the hearing for March 23rd, 2020 for Gas and Light at 7:15 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 5-0, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 15 is liaison updates. Each member of this body is assigned the various departments that they are to be liaisons to, and then provide us back to the council and to the community with periodic updates. So with that, I'll go through, and if we could begin with the fire department.
Sure. So I spoke with Chief Sullivan, and the assessment center for the deputy chief is moving along. It should happen at the end of this month. And then after that, the process is fairly quick with town administrator Mayo and Chief Sullivan having a final interview with candidates. So I'm excited about that. So hopefully by April, Steve, do you think? Like late
Yes.
April?
Yeah, we definitely, well, the assessment centers are in April.
I thought March 28th?
March 28th, okay.
Okay.
So we won't
So-
get them back until April, so.
Okay. So yeah, April or beginning of May maybe, which
Yeah.
is exciting.
Yep.
Chief Sullivan has some capital budget requests that, one who I think is critically important with regard to portable radios, so he'll be talking about that in the future. My other committee is the committees, the committee liaison to committees, which is just fun to say. In that role, I emailed each committee member individually whose term was up in 2021. So they all received an email from me. They already had received information from Sherry. A lot of them commented on that. The next time I do this, I will add a sentence, which I didn't add, that if you've already sent it in, don't worry. This is just a reminder for those who don't, because I got, like, I sent mine in, I talked to, so I had to convince people explain to people that this was just a gentle reminder. And I didn't know how everyone individually had acted. But anyways, they were very appreciative of the little extra nudge. So I think that's my committees.
And then community planning and economic development, did you have anything to add on that?
Yes. So we have a description.
Right. We have a job description. I'm going to go with what
Which
we
is
have,
exciting.
as everyone has seen, unless anybody has any issues, because not everyone's get back to me on it, so.
Okay. So I say you
Anybody
go
has
with it, because they've
Okay.
had it in their hands.
Okay.
But it's exciting, because I think the description is exactly what we want, exactly what we need. So now just throwing it out there and see who bites.
Great. And again, if you're interested in serving on a committee, commissioner, board, you have until this Wednesday, March 11th at 4:30 p.m. Applications are available online. They're very straightforward, basic application and submitting a resume. Why don't we go next to social services?
Sure. So I reached out to folks. I have a bunch of emails. So some information from the Council of Aging. They are offering free tax assistance. It continues through April 8th. It's tax season. Their free tax assistance is for Wakefield residents 60 and older with low to moderate incomes. Call the office for details. Also, right now, they are having applications for their property tax work-off program for 2021. All must submit by June 1st. The program offers a $750 deduction in homeowners real estate tax bill in return for 58 hours of work with the town. This is a great program that we have in town, so if you're interested, please call the Council of Aging, call Judy, and you'll get more information about that. Little information, the library, again, one of the best things that we have in town. This year, their white ribbon display has more ribbons than any year before, so Catherine asked that I share that. They are partnering with a group of educators and social service organizations on a mental health community forum. That is on Wednesday, April 1st. There'll be more information on our website from 7 to 9, titled Skill Not Will, How to Reduce Conflicts with Kids Through Collaborative Problem Solving. So he is an expert on collaborative problem solving, family wellness, and child wellness. They're really excited about that. She wanted me to share that the partnership for Blossoms is moving along. It's a partnership with the Chamber and the Friends. The Friends, as mentioned earlier, is seeking new volunteers, so if anyone's interested, reach out to the Friends of the Library. And then finally, just a little, members from the Albion Culture Exchange Committee weren't able to come today. They'll come to a future meeting, but they are really excited. They got their bathroom that we've been waiting for a while. Who knew we would be so excited about bathrooms? And so they've got some really exciting program coming up in March, April, and May that they will share with us. But go check out their great programming that, again, this group of volunteers puts on, and the bathrooms that were a great collaboration between state funding, town funding, state, local contractors who all did it all. So it's just great that project, I think that was even before my time on the council that we were talking about having ADA compliant bathrooms in that facility. So it's great that those are done.
Great, thank you, Councilor Butt. Gas and light.
I don't really have a lot to report on Gas and Light because we've seen them quite often in the last couple of weeks. So I won't belabor that, other than to say that I know the electric vehicle chargers are in, at least the level 2 ones. Everything seems to be working. There was a time there where there's a small charge, and that is all set up now. We have had some incidents of what we call icing, so combustion engine cars parking there. So we'll just have to work through, some sort of education campaign around that. And then I also have communications, and Peter's not here today, so I might defer some of that, but I will say that I know that Jen McDonald, in collaboration with the Health Department and others, have been looking at options for an app, for a town app that would, right in our hands, kind of have a lot of the information that's not only available on the website, but we're looking at some of the doing things like DPW tickets. And so it's still very early stage, but it's a pretty fascinating tool that I think that could be a huge benefit for the town. And Jen, of course, continues to do great work. And I noticed walking by the kiosks this weekend, just the graphics that she's doing. I know she's working really hard with organizations that are not necessarily town organizations, but to make things look very uniform and professional. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for that.
I can give a DPW one for Peter.
Yes, please.
Peter did. Peter's under the weather, couldn't be here tonight, but he has been meeting with Joe Conway, the DPW director, and I think it's no secret that there are 3 primary focuses at the DPW department. One is the Public Works facility, and we heard a little bit about that tonight. The second is the roadway funding, and we kind of have worked on that. And the third is, which we'll discuss at our next meeting, is refuse and recycling, which is going to be an issue going forward. Some of the new programs that they are looking at the DPW is a textile recycling. That will help us a little bit in our tonnage, and that's going to take place hopefully in a proactive program in the spring or summer this year. And they are also going out, and people may be seeing little tags on their recycling right now if things are in there that shouldn't be. We're doing a lot of education along that end, so Peter did want me to share that with the council tonight.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayo. Turn to schools.
Sure. So a number of things going on with the schools. So the proposed budget for fiscal 2021 will be presented to the school committee tomorrow. I think that's the one large budget that we haven't actually seen yet. And so I'll be attending that meeting just to learn more, and we'll see that at our next meeting. You know, one of the things I think that they're focusing on is continuing to invest in special education and classroom support, partly to make sure that we're serving students more effectively, of course, and making life a little bit easier for our teachers who have incredibly difficult jobs, but also to make sure that we can serve students in district. And I mention that because one of the things that I expect we'll see in the budget tomorrow is that the trend on out-of-district spending is actually fairly moderate for the next year, and so that's really good news. So, you know, while we are making investments in the community and that comes with a cost, that does have some pretty significant cost savings on the other end, which is great. Big component of the budget is the teachers' union negotiation, which obviously has been, you know, top of mind for folks. My understanding from talking to Superintendent Lyons is the negotiation is moving forward. You know, both sides are meeting regularly in good faith. You know, I've heard that sort of, you know, both the school committee and school department and the union have made some, you know, some pretty tough compromises on both sides. And so I'm hopeful that that will reach resolution soon, and I know everyone's eager to get that out of the way. Third thing I just wanted to mention, the eligibility period for the high school through the MSBA officially opens on April 1st. So we were notified that we were being invited into the eligibility phase in December, but then there's a whole lot that doesn't happen until that phase actually starts. So April 1st is the date that that starts, and that's when a lot of the work will happen in terms of the beginning of the preparations and anticipating a vote for funding of the feasibility study for a potential new school at fall town meeting. As part of that process, there also will be an enrollment study that's conducted over the next several months, so that, similar to what we talked about with the public safety building, we're able to, as we go through the feasibility study process, plan for the future. Finally, there's a lot going on with the schools, so I apologize for the long update, but did just want to mention for folks in the community, the first day of school has been set for Tuesday, September 8th, and want to highlight that because of the last several years, it's been the Thursday after Labor Day, but because Labor Day is late this year, it will be the Tuesday after Labor Day. So just something to keep in mind for those of us who make camp and vacation plans for the end of the summer.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Councilor Chines. All right. I just have two brief updates. One relates to the Finance Committee. I am a voting member along with the chair of the Finance Committee and the town moderator. We have voted to appoint two new members to the Finance Committee, the first being Amy Forsyth, and the second being Bill Boudry, who had been on the Finance Committee some years ago and then has reapplied back. We had an absolutely outstanding applicant pool. And I know that we say that often, and I mentioned earlier tonight at another event we had that that's a nice problem for us to have, but it was absolutely outstanding. And we've already been encouraging those who aren't going to be sitting on Finance Committee to be involved in other ways within town. And I think there's tremendous talent there that will be a nice addition to our community. With respect to long-range forecasting, I think that's an ongoing issue that I'm constantly speaking with Mr. Mayo on. The focus of late has been working with Bond Council, looking at scheduling relative to the roads improvement project that we spoke about the last meeting. I expect that the next meeting will have a more comprehensive breakdown of that for everyone, but that, again, is a work in progress. I did just want to pick up on one point relative to the schools. Our next meeting will actually be at the Greenwood Elementary School, and so that meeting is when the school committee will be presenting their budget to this body, but I believe that would be a first. That we'll have it at the Greenwood. We'll also have the Permanent Building Committee talking about the work that's being done there at the Greenwood, but that next meeting on the 23rd will be at the Greenwood School, and certainly everyone is invited to attend.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a
Yes.
Finance Committee question? I know when we had our tri-board meeting in October, one of the things we reviewed was the forecast model that Dan Sherman from Finance Committee puts together. Would it be possible for us, and I think maybe sort of after we review the school department budget, to kind of see a refresh of that? I think it'd be
Yeah,
helpful to kind of set
absolutely.
everything in context for
Yeah,
us.
I was in Mr. Mellow's office most of the day today, and I think Mr. Sherman called in at least 2 or 3 times. so there's a constant
Yep.
triangulation of communication there, certainly. So I think
Fair
that's,
enough.
I think that's certainly something that we can have, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Is it the same at the Greenwood, 7 o'clock?
It is.
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to jump back to item number 16, which was a donation. The library seeks approval of acceptance of gifts and to expend a gift or gifts to the library in the amount of $1,100. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councilor Shine. Seeing none. The motion before you is the approval of the gift and expenditure of $1,100 with our thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote of 5 to 0, the motion carries unanimously. Chairman's comments. I wanted to just briefly touch upon 2 things that had, one that had come up previously, one that is new. I know that there has been some discussion relative to potential developments at the head of the lake on Quannapowitt Parkway. There has been some news reporting in the newspaper relative to that, and I understand community concerns relative to it. It also came up as a point of discussion here at a prior town council meeting. I spoke with Mr. Mayo, and he was able to arrange a meeting so that we were able to understand just the basics of what was potentially being conceptualized is probably the best way to describe it. At this point, we're talking about the old Converse building for anyone who is not clear. The property at present is not even under agreement, so I think we need to bear that in mind. There is a group, Cabot and Forbes. They do a lot of development that is expressing an interest in that property, and I think it's probably fair to say at this point they're doing their due diligence relative to exploring what could happen on that property. We, as a town council, are not the body that development projects come before, but in light of the concerns and legitimate concerns at that people had raised, it seemed appropriate to at least have a baseline understanding directly from the people that were looking at potential plans as to what they were thinking. And so that's what Mr. Mayo and I sat down with them to better understand. And so most of this has already been reported, but there is the potential under their concept plans for three buildings, 2 of which would be apartment buildings, 1 of which would be condominiums. There would be parking of approximately 990 spaces in a garage that would be fully wrapped by housing, so you wouldn't see the garage. It would be basically in the core of the building. Most of what has been reported in the local newspaper is consistent with what had been told to us. Again, these are concepts at this point. And so I thought it was important to at least be able to deliver this basic understanding of what this project could potentially be seeking to become. Mind you, there's no permits that have been submitted. There's been no permitting at this point. But I did also see it as an opportunity for us as a town to strongly encourage public outreach early on. And so at that meeting, I encouraged them to hold a number of community forums to get community feedback, because I think that that's an important piece to this. And I think going forward, it's the sort of thing that with these sorts of projects, we should encourage all developers with any potential concepts to vet them through the community first. And Mr. Mayo and I raised with them the issues that were obvious to us, so that early on they were thinking through things like traffic, building height, project density. We explained to them that the lake is the crown jewel of this town. Things like the water quality and runoff, into the lake. Ideas of green space, how the aesthetic of the lake could be impacted. Impact on public services, potential for school enrollment numbers, requirements of police, fire, et cetera. So all these issues were just put out there for them to flag them, to let them know that these are the issues that are consistently coming up within our community, and that any sort of development should really be sensitive to all of them. And we left it at that. Ultimately, we are not the adjudicatory board. That is the ZBA. So if they're looking for special permitting, by statute, that goes through the ZBA, not through this body. But I did feel it was important to at least have a baseline understanding that I could report back to all of you, and also to encourage them to reach out to the community. And my understanding is they have since. I guess they've had some communications or even some meetings with Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. I think last week they may have had a community meeting of some sort. I encourage them that they should probably have a series of meetings to discuss any sort of plans they have. So everything is certainly preliminary right now. As I said, there isn't even a transaction as of yet. But I thought it was appropriate for us to be ahead of this, because I know that it's a sensitive issue for the community, and it's a concerning one, and we want to make sure that we get out ahead of this. So with that, Mr. Mayo, if you have anything to add.
No, I think that we did encourage them to reach out to the community. I think a lot of our kind of concerns in listening to this concept for the first time was the same that you read in the paper. Basically the same: the height, the density, the traffic. They talked about having solar energy, green space, amenities to the lake, with a walkway that they kind of a little dock walkway that they talked about, but very basic concepts, and they don't even have anything under agreement. So this may be nothing.
Right.
This is really kind of testing the waters and seeing it.
But I do think it's important, if they do end up having those community forums, more of them, that people be engaged and go to them, attend them, express your concerns or your thoughts relative to it. Certainly, there's always a balance, because we're talking about private property, and so we have certain zoning and there's a lot of discussion about zoning bylaws and the like, which are more applicable to the downtown area, but. That doesn't mean that we cannot still communicate to a potential buyer the concerns that we would have with the project, and hope that they would be sensitive to them and incorporate them in. But again, we talked at a very kind of like high level relative to the fundamental concerns that seem to be underlying a lot of the community concerns with any development here. Any questions or comments on that? Councilor Smith-Galvin.
I'll just bring it up because it's related, and I think we jumped over constituent issues, but it makes so I think given this project and what we've been talking about, and I've already spoken with Steve about it, that this will eventually come to the ZBA, and community meetings are great, but in the end it is the ZBA that makes the decision, and I think that we should make every effort as soon as possible to have the ZBA being recorded. And I've asked Steve to reach out to them to find out their schedule and to ask them to start meeting here and have WCAT, because I think that we need this starting from the very beginning, people to have a full record of this.
They've already looked into kind of meeting with WCAT and figuring out when they can meet
Great.
for all their meetings.
Great.
So that's
So-
in the works. While we get
Thank you for doing that.
I think another piece of that too is community engagement. And as much as commenting on social media has a place in getting word out, I think in coming to the meetings is really the best way, just like we have, community participation, having, folks go to the ZBA meetings, and if they have concerns, to raise them to the ZBA, so that the ZBA hears more of the public's opinion on it. Certainly, again, we were talking at a very broad level, but, the fundamental issues that always, underpin these projects. But I think having, more engagement with residents at ZBA meetings generally is a really important step.
I just,
Councilor Galvin, sorry.
and I was just going to say, I think that's important, but I also think we don't need to do it just for one project, and I think this is where the visioning comes in, that Jonathan presented a couple of meetings ago, because I think in general, we're going to be confronting issues like this, and it would be nice for developers to have that bigger picture, and for us to be giving indications to the committees as to what the bigger picture is and our vision for the town.
I do think that it sets any project on the right track. And so it's a sort of thing where, again, the ZBA is an independent authority ultimately in terms of making the decisions, but if the ZBA understands what the priorities of the town are more clearly defined, I think that gives them some more direction as well to understand the rate priorities.
I think that's exactly right, and I've heard from members of the ZBA that they look at things like what's the vision, what are the priorities, what do the planning documents say. I mean, I think they're sort of mindful of the fact that they actually have an enormous amount of power, and want to make sure that they're making those decisions in a way that's that's sort of expressive of kind of where the town's sentiments are. So I think that's absolutely right. I will say just briefly, if I may, on the visioning work, We are looking at getting a survey out soon that Jen McDonald has been doing some great work on to figure out sort of how, collect feedback from people as to how they want to engage in that process. We also are close to identifying sort of the committee members from the other boards and commissions in town. I have a few laggards that I need to chase down, as I'm sure Councilor Santos understands from being the liaison to committees. But that work is going ahead. We also, again, are looking at applying for that technical assistance grant to help that work along.
Did I mention that the deadline for applying for committees, commissions, or boards is this Wednesday, March 11th at 4:30 p.m.?
Thank you, Jay.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm sorry, we'll jump back to items number 17, which is constituent issues. Does anyone have any constituent issues they want to raise this evening?
Just very briefly.
Vice Chair Santos.
The development at the head of the lake. So I've heard from folks from neighborhoods that will be highly impacted, people that potentially might be related to me. So they called me screaming and yelling about it based on what they read. But what I explained to this person who I care greatly about is she was a little annoyed, which I understand, reading that the developer had talked to Friends of Lake Quannapowitt and only them, it seemed like, in who, which is, of course they should be speaking with Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, but I think your idea of pushing it out into the communities and having the neighborhoods that will be drastically affected, this road particular, will be quite impacted. So I think, I know I told her to call Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, and she did. She talked to Karen Failer, so they're getting in touch. But it definitely has to be pushed out to the community. So it sounds like you're all doing that anyway. So thank you very much. And I also told her not to listen to social media, and at the facts, and there's no agreement yet, but it's going to end up at the ZBA, and that's where you really can be engaged. So taping those meetings is critical for a development like this and moving forward. Thank you.
I just want to respond to what Ann said. I really appreciate the update. I think I'm gonna ask you, Steve, and actually you had to think about what you just updated us on. That actually does get out to the community. So for people who don't read the item and don't stay on social media, I think we have a duty as a council to say this is the process. And you met with the developers. I'd actually asked Steve about this a couple of weeks ago, and so I would have loved to have been part of that meeting, just to hear what they're saying. And I get we're not involved, but I think for us all to do some level setting about whether it's on our website or whether it's a letter from us to the paper. But I just think thinking about how we again communicate what we're saying at 10:25 at a meeting for people that don't read the paper and are on social media. I think that's really important to do. So not everyone calls Ann or calls Friends of the Lake, that they actually, we can send them to our website that has, this is the process, and there isn't a transaction yet. And when there is, ZBA is in charge of it. I think that's really important to be transparent about the process.
For such a big project. I don't necessarily read social media, and I didn't read the items, so all of this is new to me. So I'd appreciate that being somewhere.
I think something we should probably all think about is it's hard because this is an idea by someone who might be buying a property, and at what point do we engage? And I think to your point, Councilor Shines, being able to have the priorities kind of laid out there so that they're universally understood. So anyone coming into town understands, okay, these are the concerns that Wakefield has about development. Kind of laying it out there in a more kind of systematic way, because otherwise we're kind of chasing maybe one developer's idea, and it's it's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole. Okay, well, hit that one with this one.
I think the process is what we're asking for. Is here's our vision statement. Here's right. So I don't actually think. I think it's just explaining what the process is, which we have not done.
Yeah, and if I may, I think if you read the article in the item, it would seem to suggest that 600 units were being built at the head of the lake tomorrow, which is obviously not the case. And so I think if I'm sort of hearing your comments correctly, Councilor Butt, a lot of it is just saying, look, nothing happens until A, the property is bought, B, until they come up with a specific plan, and C, until they submit that for
Right.
permitting. Then there's a process with the ZBA. I think just even that basic level of here's how development happens in town, I think is probably something that
Which I think most people
we're
don't
missing.
know.
I think so,
that's right.
And I think it was only because of the meeting that the developers initially had with the Friends of Lake Quannapowick that this even became an issue. I don't think any of us would even have been aware of it because it's so early in the process. So the idea of encouraging public forums, public, community discussions, those sorts of things, I think it will make for better projects generally, not just related to this. Obviously, this would be a significant change, but just in general, I think that's probably something we want to figure out how to kind of foster that sort of approach, because I think it'll streamline things for everybody and make sure that all the concerns are raised early on. Okay, well, that's an ongoing discussion, certainly. On a somewhat lighter note,
Sorry, just one other thing on constituent issues. Very briefly, I did just want to mention I received a question and a suggestion from a constituent about looking at using electronic voting at town meeting. I think this is something that some other communities use. Primarily communities that have representative town meetings where, tracking votes for people that you elect is important. Mention it here just to say I've reached out to the town moderator about this, and we'll have some further discussions with him. Obviously, big issue for him to consider, but just wanted to mention it here as something that's come up.
Thank you for that. So now I'll move on to comments B, and that is the 2020 U.S. Census Challenge. And I received an email about a week ago, as did Mr. Mayo, from our neighbors in Stoneham, and the chair of the select board, Chair McNeil, and their town administrator have offered us a challenge that we have accepted on behalf of the town, and that relates to the 2020 census. And so Stoneham has challenged us to see which community can have more people submit back their census by May 14th at 12 noon, at high noon. And you should expect to be receiving, there would be 20 paces. You should expect to be receiving your first letter relative to the census middle of this month, so probably in the next week or two. I plead with you, I beg with you, to please complete your census as soon as you are able to. It has a tremendous impact on our community in terms of our representation, in terms of funding, in terms of understanding the demographics of our community, our population. But while all that's important, beating Stoneham is the #1 reason. So I would ask you, I would just be clear that we're coming for you, Stoneham. Despite our performance at dodging for dollars the last few years, we are excellent at completing census. We will do it. And I did want to share with everyone here a message that we received from the Stoneham Select Board leadership. I can assure you that we will be responding in kind, but 10 times better. But with that, if we could roll it.
Hello, Wakefield. In an effort to promote the completion of the census, we challenge your chair and town administrator to have all residents complete the United States 2020 census by Wednesday, May 13th, 2020 at 12 noon. The town with the highest average response rate, according to the Census Bureau's Rome application, will win. The town who loses will have the chair of their council or board and their town administrator wear spirit attire from the winning town at its next regularly scheduled meeting after May 13th. We are hopeful that you will accept this challenge and the positive spirit in which it is being offered. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll all look fabulous in blue.
And what's great about this is, as young professionals, Mr. Mayo and I will be able to participate in this every 10 years for the next 2, 3, or 4 census. I know Mr. Mayo is very, very excited about doing this 40 years from now.
First of all, I'd like to say that he's never had to fill in a census before. I think Dennis has had to do maybe two in his life. 2. And second of all, they are very insulting, and I'll share this if I can, Mr. Chairman.
Of course.
So anyways, for those of you who know or don't know, My wife works in Stoneham school system, so as part of her, they did this secret Valentine thing. So the last day, everyone got a secret Valentine, and her secret Valentine, someone gave her this, the Stoneham S, and she said, I can't take this home. I think that George Siebold was behind this, myself somehow, or Dennis Sheehan over there. So I think that they have thrown down the gauntlet. So yes, please, fill in the census 2, 3, 4 times. Send it in, because we do have to beat Stoneham. And that's all I can say for now, but I'll have more.
So there will be plenty more to be said on this topic in the weeks and months to come, but rest assured that Wakefield will dominate. I was trying to think of a single way in which Stoneham has ever beaten us in anything, aside from dodgeball, and I was coming up short. So I'm sure you'll make us proud, Wakefield. Thank you.
Just saying, I moved here from Stoneham, so there you go. Voted with my feet.
Indeed. Item number 19, former Stoneham resident Councilor Chines.
Thank you. On looking ahead, on March 2nd, I signed $9.6 million of warrants, details in the packet, mostly salary, enterprise transfers, and debt service. Again, information's in the packet, but also just want to quickly highlight and recognize that Open Checkbook is now online. And so thank you to Mr. Mayo and Ms. McDonald and everyone at Town Hall for making that possible. If residents have any questions or have any curiosity about where the town is spending your taxpayer dollars, all of that information is now online, in addition to the virtual budget as well. So really great resource, and if you are a municipal financing dork like myself, you will probably find yourself on the website for hours and hours digging through that stuff. So thank you again for pulling that together, Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Councilor Chines. For the update, any questions for Councilor Chines? All right, seeing none, item number 20 is matters not anticipated for the agenda. These would be matters that came up within the last 48 hours that couldn't make the open meeting law posting requirements. Do we have any this evening? Seeing none, item number 21 is announcements and acknowledgements, the opportunity for town councilors to make any announcements or acknowledgements to the community. With that, do we have any this evening? Councilor Butt.
Sure. So just a couple of announcements. Tomorrow, the Human Rights Commission is having their 4th annual International Women's Day event. It is a great panel at the Savings Bank Theater. Each for all, I think, is their motto this year, but it's always a great event. 3 residents of Wakefield and some other folks speaking on a panel, so please come and join us there. I also, Councilor Chines reminded me, but I just wanted to thank everyone who participated in the WEF Adult Spelling Bee last weekend. I also wanted to congratulate and thank my team as we won the Adult Spelling Bee by 1 point. We have a statute that I will bring at our next meeting and have our trophy here for that. And then just the last update I wanted to give, and there'll be more on this, but right now is public comment period on our community garden until the 23rd, until 2 meetings. And after that, we have a plan, thanks to Steve, Dan McGrath, and Jen McDonald. We are hoping for our ribbon cutting at JJ Rounds in our community garden on May 1st. So keep that, save that date, more information to come. It's a Friday. Friday, May 1st, 9 a.m.
Great.
6 a.m. Early
6,
gardeners, they want to get into the earth early.
Thank you, Councilor Butt. Anyone else? Councilor Smith-Galvin.
I'll just add to the spelling bee that my team won the costume, the costume contest, though we lost horribly, the trivia. To add to the International Women's Day celebrations, I wanted to mention that our local history museum is doing an exhibit on Wakefield women, and they have a number of open house events coming up. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm anxious to do so. I know one, I think, is tomorrow night, conflicting with the event, but I know they have some weekend hours coming up as well. And Thursday night is the much-loved STEAM night at the Galvin Middle School, with lots going on to celebrate the sciences and engineering and math. So I look forward to seeing everybody there. The DPW and the Environmental Sustainability Committee is doing some education around recycling to help with our topic for next meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Smith-Galvin. Councilor Chines.
A couple of things. First of all, just a reminder, next Monday, March 16th, Senator Lewis is hosting a forum on Chapter 70 and state aid for local education. 7 o'clock at the Savings Bank Theater. Should be really interesting. Good opportunity to learn more about, what is for Wakefield a pretty significant area of funding. Keeping on the school theme, Parent University, we mentioned earlier in the meeting, is going to be a week from Saturday. That's March 21st at the Galvin. Really a great event, and for folks that maybe haven't had a chance to participate, really good opportunity. They do offer childcare as well, so encourage folks to go to that. I do have office hours, my March office hours coming up this Saturday, 9 to 11 at the library. And finally, just wanted to, because I think Councillor Butt was very diplomatic about the spelling bee, just want to again reiterate that our team did come in first. I can't say that that was through any of the contributions of myself or Councillor Butt. I think we had a really good team behind us. But again, just want to mention we came in first, and maybe that'll be sort of inspiration for us as we think about our census challenge and dodging for dollars coming up in our competition with Stoneham. In all seriousness, really great event. As always, for the spelling bee, obviously supported a great cause, and while it was great to win, it was also great to participate and be there as well. So congratulations to them.
We also learned a new term, the bank is closed, apparently from the 1920s. I don't know, interesting stuff. Vice Chair Santos, anything?
No, I'm all set. My mind can't really articulate anything at this point, not having eaten dinner yet either.
I just wanted to, again, recognize our volunteers this evening, celebrating Wakefield Volunteer Appreciation Night. All of our volunteers, I don't know if we can zoom in on this, but all of our volunteers, and many of us tonight are wearing these. These are lapel pins that say Town of Wakefield. So if you see someone wearing this, thank them for the work that they're doing for our community. It's really impactful, and any of the volunteers that we appoint to a board, commission, or committee that didn't receive one, we can certainly make sure that you get one. I also want to again remind everyone that Friends of BB are looking for volunteers. They had a great open house yesterday. If you're interested, friendsofbb.org. Please check it out. There's a lot of opportunity there as well. And finally, just a reminder that our next town council meeting will be at the Greenwood School. That is Monday the 23rd at 7 p.m. And we encourage everyone to attend. It'll be somewhat specific to the Greenwood School, or there will be a focus on the Greenwood School, including the roof project, and we'll certainly be talking about the school budget as well. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Santos, seconded by Councillor Chines. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Voted 5-0. The motion carries unanimously. With that, I'll gavel the meeting closed. Thank you for watching Wakefield, and good night.